Friday, April the 3rd, 2020. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of That's What G Said podcast. Hope everyone is staying safe and, entertaining themselves at the quarantine time. Is unfortunately, some of the racetracks that are continuing to run are getting closed down now. I think we only have a few tracks running. We still have wrestling, though, and we're doing a lot of binge watching, and we're doing a lot of going back in time, or I guess preparing ourselves for the future when these sports do hopefully eventually start back up. So on this episode of That's What G Said, we're going to talk some Tiger King. Oh, you know that. We'll give you some thoughts on Wrestlemania Preview. Wrestlemania coming up this weekend. It is on Saturday night and Sunday night. We're going to go back and recap Wrestlemania 7 and old Wrestlemania with Andrew Champagne and Darin Andrew. And then we'll give you some horse racing action for Friday, Gulfstream and Oaklawn. And then for Saturday, Gulfstream and Oaklawn. Kick back and enjoy this episode of That's What G Said podcast. Some notes in the NFL. Tom Brady just rented Derek Jeter's huge mansion in Tampa. Tom Brady, this is an ESPN article. Tom Brady moving to Tampa after signing with the Bucs. He needed a place to stay, and he's got Jeter's former home valued, according to Zillow, at almost $6 million more than the average house in the neighborhood. It's the largest house in Hillsborough County, according to the New York Times. It's the size of an average Best Buy store. Much of the original architecture is Mediterranean. The mansion built by Jeter clashes an English manor style home. And so it's different. That's what I'm saying. It's different than a lot of the architecture of the area, which is more Mediterranean. Brady and his wife have 2 children. There are enough bedrooms for them to have 3 apiece, leaving one for mom and dad. 7 bedrooms, 9 bathrooms, 30,000 plus square feet in this massive crib. According to Zillow, the rent estimate would be more than $44,000 a month. It has a boat launch, room for 8 cars, a pool, a fireplace, and even an elevator. Okay. Tom Brady moving on in right now to Jeter's old shop down in Tampa. Okay, so if you're the Baltimore Ravens and you have a pretty well-built, pretty well-balanced team, you can run the hell out of the ball. You made some really nice moves on the defensive side of the ball. You feel like you're set up with some pieces moving forward, good quarterback, tight end. But you kind of, even a young wide receiver, but you're lacking a little wide receiver. Do you take a chance on Antonio Brown? It's one of the rumors floating around right there. Does anybody take a chance on Antonio Brown? And if you were Baltimore, would you be willing to take a chance on someone like Antonio Brown? I don't think I would. Obviously, his skill set would be a perfect fit there, right? But I wouldn't want someone when I have a young quarterback who's, I like Lamar Jackson. I like him leading the team, and I don't want to bring someone like Antonio Brown in and mess that all up. So I wouldn't do it, even though it's tempting to think of what he could do for Baltimore. Over in the NBA, there is going to be an NBA 2K tournament that begins on Friday. Kevin Durant leads the field. The NBA, the Players Association, and 2K have partnered to produce an NBA 2K tournament that's going to air on ESPN and ESPN2 starting Friday. It will run through April 11th. Tournament will run on ESPN until 8:30 p.m. and in scheduled transition to ESPN2 until 11:30 p.m. 16 players will compete, and they are seeded based on their rankings in NBA 2K. So Kevin Durant is number 1, Trae Young is number 2, Hassan Whiteside number 3, Donovan Mitchell 4, Devin Booker 5, Andre Drummond 6, Zach LaVine 7, Montrezl Harrell is 8, Sabonis is 9, DeAndre Ayton is 10, DeMarcus Cousins is 11, Michael Porter Jr. 12, Rui Hachimura 13, Pat Beverly 14, Harrison Barnes 15, and Derek Jones Jr. 16. So with no live sports, we can watch these NBA players playing some video games, playing some NBA 2K. What do you think of the Dodgers' Justin Turner's proposal that extra inning games go into a home run derby if they continue to go on? So hear it out first. Instead of playing 17 innings, you get one extra inning. You play the 10th inning. If no one scores, then you go to a home run derby, Turner said Wednesday on Spectrum Sportsnet. You take each team's 3 best hitters and you give them all 5 outs and see who hits the most homers. You know, you want to keep the fans in the stands until the end of the game. I know when I go to hockey games, I enjoy watching shootouts. It keeps me in my seat. Maybe a home run derby will do that as well. He also said the suggestion would be just for this season when baseball is looking for ways to get in as many games as possible in a season truncated by the coronavirus pandemic. Nobody wants to see a tie, Turner said. A quick one-round, 6-man derby, 3 aside, 5 outs, 10 swings. Keep it safe for the hitters, and you have your winner. Said everything is on the table when baseball comes back. Multiple doubleheaders a week, 7-inning doubleheaders, extra inning rules, roster expansion. It's all about getting creative there. So, outside-the-box idea from Justin Turner. So, Tiger King. Everyone out there is talking about Tiger King. Everybody's watching the Tiger King. So we watched the Tiger King. And if you haven't seen this on Netflix, I'm going to go through, some spoilers and stuff. So if you want to, skip around, but I'm not generally a fan of, just like real trashy TV, big or reality shows, stuff like that. This was extremely polarizing. It was just like you couldn't help but kind of keep watching and see what was going to happen next. It's basically inside the lives of zookeepers, big cat animal breeders, and animal rights activists. Okay, but it's just not what it sounds like, and I'm going to describe a little bit of it, and then I'm going to react to some of the ringers. They had a funny reaction article for some of their writers. It's about Joe Exotic, who is he doesn't seem real. He seems like some made up TV character. He was quoted by another person in the documentary series as a completely insane guy, completely insane, quote unquote, completely insane gay gun-toting drug addict fanatic. This was a documentary that was initially supposed to be about snakes, and by accident, when they were doing this, they found a guy with a snow leopard. It led them to this entire world and to Joe Exotic, who lives with 187 big cats at the GW Exotic Animal Park. This guy he loves to entertain people. He wants to be a star. He is a country singer, we find out. He films everything all day. There's always a camera running in everything that he does when he's operating at the park, because he has a TV show that he would run on the internet every night. And we start to hear from a TV producer, Rick Kirkham, who was hired to kind of help make this look real, because he was a former TV producer. So he helped, make Joe's show more legit, look like an actual TV show. Joe was in a war with a woman named Carol Baskin. She's the CEO of Big Cat Rescue. She's an animal rights activist, which is funny because she actually used to be a breeder, and now she's an activist. Carol hates Joe. Joe hates Carol. She's got this kind of weird hippie vibe, but she is ruthless, so she kind of comes off phony, and she obviously thinks she's fixing the problem, and she thinks Joe is the problem. She's got cat stuff everywhere, cat print, and she runs this Big Cat Rescue. We get back to Joe, who, at his place, we get a look at him in his gift shop. He's got everything imaginable that he sells there. Some weird, sex creams, and he's got his CDs his albums, including I Saw a Tiger and Starstruck, 28 songs, 16 music videos. We then hear from Joe's ex-husband, one of Joe's workers. There's a point in this where there's a weird 3-person wedding, including Joe and 2 other men, all in their pink tuxes. We find out that Joe's family didn't approve of him being gay. He actually like attempted to kill himself. He suffered injuries. He went to rehab in Florida, and that's where he kind of, for the first time, interacted with exotic animals. And then he fell in love with exotic animals, and he realized that that's what he wanted to do for a living. Another one of the major characters in this is Doc Antle, Bogvan. He is a major player in the exotic animal world. He's the director of Myrtle Beach Safari, South Carolina, 50 acres. And he is, Joe is way more of like a low rent zoo operation, everything. Doc Antle is super upscale. Huge, hugely professional. Even when they're the people that are doing this project, that are filming it, they come in and like Doc's kind of giving them angles and telling them to come do it from here. You could just tell this guy is like, he runs his business and his organization very well, very high end. And Joe learned a lot from Doc Antle. Doc was talking about how it pays him. It costs him $10,000 per year to feed each tiger. Joe pays him. Joe costs about $3,000. He gets food from feedlots and other animals in the area that get killed. Doc Antle is the person who provides the animals for a lot of movies. He's had movies in Ace Ventura, Dr. Dolittle, Jungle Book, and over 500 movies. Joe is more of, he's putting on shows, going to small malls, pictures with the kids with at the malls and stuff like that. And then Carol Baskin finds out, and these two, Joe and Doc, she's against the two of them, but in particular she kind of has it out for Joe, and Joe and her don't like each other. And so Carol gets Joe shut down at the malls. She has all these people that are volunteers that volunteer with her, trying to make sure Joe can't continue to go and bring the animals all around. I mean, this guy's crazy. He's like standing. He's out on his on his bike, just in front of a big tornado that's about to come, and he's just insane. He really is. He is a character, though. He's a very good TV character for something like this. Joe, we see him all over the news. He's on TV shows, bringing his animals. Same thing with Doc Antle. These are the people that you've seen on like Leno and Letterman. We can see Shaq at the beginning of the documentary, and Shaq gives them a shout out on TNT. Shaq since recently come out and said, he didn't really know all this stuff about these people. And Joe, this thing kind of tweaks and turns a little bit. You think it's about the animal, the big cats and things like that, and then all of a sudden we find out soon it's about like murder and attempted murder. And we find out Carol's husband got killed, and there's all these weird signs that point to her being heavily involved. A lot of people think she's involved. Joe writes a song about her feeding her husband to a tiger. Joe threatens Carol through his videos and his show. He threatens the police in the local area and PETA, constantly carrying guns around, telling them if they come and try to take his animals from them, it's going to be a Waco. So this becomes about the battle between Carol and Joe, with kind of Doc Antle in the mix, not quite as much with the other two. It's weird. And Carol, I don't like Carol. Don't get me wrong, Joe's insane also. This is just a situation where nobody feels like the good guy. The good guy, good gal. Like, nobody feels like the good person in here. One of Joe's employees loses her arm in an accident. Tiger bites it off. And she chooses to have the arm amputated instead of a couple years of surgeries and rehab. And she's just like an unbelievably loyal worker to Joe, to the animals. She doesn't want to stay in the hospital and draw more attention and, get the activists, rights animals, the animal right activists against her and draw more attention with the media. So she's like back working in a few days. And she is one of the, like, when you hear everyone and see everyone in this, she usually comes off like one of the more normal people in it. This is something you have to watch. So the Ringer does a Tiger King exit survey that I thought was pretty funny. There were some funny parts in here to read through. So that Netflix latest true crime offering doesn't center on just a murder for hire plot, which is where this thing gets to in the end. We find out that this rivalry has caused Joe to actually hire someone to kill Carol. It looks like Carol killed her husband. It looks like Carol is willing to do anything, and it looks like Joe is willing to do anything. And Joe is in jail now for 22 years. So, some of the things that stood out to the folks from the Ringer is indescribable. Nothing I could tell you could lessen the shocks. Ever wonder what Tiger's true crime bold fashion choices, country music, a crazy cat lady, a gay throuple, and the feds look like together on screen? Then stop what you're doing and watch The Tiger King. That was Jordan Leggins, Jason Concepcion said the first one, Meg Schuster, Prince Albert padlocks. Yeah, Joe talks about how he has a penis piercing, obviously, that he doesn't wear underwear. Doc Antle, the very upscale exotic cat breeder, he has basically a cult of young women that are sort of like his sex slaves, which is really interesting that in this, world of the big cats and exotic animals, everybody just has multiple partners and it just seems to be like normal. What was the best moment of the series? Some said the triple wedding, the horribly awkward wedding with Joe Exotic. That wedding pops up a lot. Saf getting her arm bitten off, which we mentioned. How about Joe has a music video for the song Here Kitty Kitty, which is about the woman feeding her husband's carcass to tigers. I mean, this is real stuff. It's crazy. Just crazy. They rank some of their biggest twists by surprise factor. Joe's country music career. Carol started out as a big cat breeder. Situation between Doc Antle and his girlfriends. Travis's accidental death by suicide. That's another crazy one that pops up a lot. Carol's husband's disappearance. Carol at one point talks about what kind of a scent you could put on something to draw a big cat's attention. And then we see Joe's, getting nearly mauled. This thing just, it takes you on a ride. And I could go on for an hour about this, and it still wouldn't be able to truly explain it to you without watching. So give this a watch. Let me know if you like it or don't. It's one of those things where it's not good. You just keep watching it because it's so crazy. It's just batshit. It really is. So, Tiger King on Netflix. Give it a look. We'll see what the next craze to sweep the nation is that I'll have to end up watching and recording so I could share the thoughts with you. For the first time ever, coming up this weekend, Wrestlemania will be held over 2 nights, and it will be held without any fans. And it's going to be WrestleMania 36 coming up. Makes you feel old, huh? You're a wrestling fan? We're up to 36 on the Manias. So 16 matches currently carded. I'm recording this before Friday Night SmackDown, so who knows if there are going to be any changes. We do know of a couple changes that have already happened, and I'll mention those. So I guess I'll say spoiler alert if you want, but it's not really a spoiler. It looks like we know who's going to be the fill-in for Roman Reigns in the Universal title match. We'll get to that in a minute. Okay, let's start, I guess, sort of from the bottom with we don't know how they'll spread this out. It's going to be over 2 nights. Is it going to be like Raw on one night and SmackDown matches on the other night? Is it going to be more of evenly spread out, with comparable matches on the separate cards all the way through? Is it going to be more of like an A card and a B card? Who knows? Lots of different ways they can go with this. Otis versus Dolph Ziggler with Mandy Rose. Otis and Mandy had the flirtation for a while, and then Mandy showed some interest in Dolph, and, Otis has kind of looked like the loser in this. But I really liked when Otis snapped the other night for the first time, and Otis should get the win here. He really should, as far as the storytelling is going, he's not going to get the girl. He should get the win here, and maybe Mandy kind of wants to give Otis a look, and then he doesn't, he's not interested. I don't know. Who knows? There's many ways they can go with this, but I would much prefer seeing Otis get the win here. It would be crazy if, Dolph Ziggler, I believe this is his first ever one-on-one match at WrestleMania, and he's just in a strange spot right now. This isn't going to be probably a huge match, but they've definitely done a little bit with Otis for a while. They've been building this angle for a bit. The Kabuki Warriors, Asuka and Kairi Sane versus Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross. Alexa Bliss got the win over Asuka recently, and Kairi Sane's been a little bit banged up over the last couple months. This could be a good match if they let this go for a while and they give it time. All these girls can work pretty well, and I think there might be a title change here. Wouldn't shock me. Asuka and Kairi are a bit cold here, but this could be a good match. Kind of sneaky good. Elias versus King Corbin. Not, expecting a whole lot out of this, and I wouldn't be shocked if we end up seeing that this is kind of like maybe a little bit more of an angle than an actual match. We rarely see Elias go in a long match. We rarely see Elias even have angles anymore nowadays. He's definitely been cooled off on as of late, so I'm not expecting a whole lot out of this one. Hopefully we can get Elias to just break a guitar over King Corbin and maybe get a WrestleMania moment with a quick win here. We're going to get the Street Profits, Angelo Dawkins and Montez Ford versus Austin Theory and Angel Garza. Austin Theory is going to be coming up. He's going to be making his WrestleMania debut, and he just recently debuted as a fill-in for Andrade, who is injured. I don't think this is a really good spot for Theory and Garza to win the tag titles. The Street Profits have actually been pretty entertaining when they're not having to do some of those forced backstage segments. They're good. They're just naturally good on their own. I like them. I think it's, keep it with the Street Profits there. Let's go to, let's see here. Aleister Black, Bobby Lashley. This one kind of came out of nowhere. There hasn't really been a whole lot of build to this. Aleister Black should get a win here to continue to build his trajectory. Weird that after that whole big feud with Lana and Rusev and Liv Morgan was in the mix, that we haven't really seen much from Lashley, Lana, Rusev really at all. Tag team, SmackDown tag team titles, Miz and Morrison versus the New Day versus the Usos in a triple threat here. This one could be really good if they just get a lot of time. All three of these teams can go in the ring. Miz and Morrison have been really good since being reunited. They had a goofy music video on social media. Go and search for that. Anything could happen in here. There was actually rumors that the Miz was sick, not a coronavirus sick, just was sick when some of this was going on, or I guess before they were getting ready to film some of these matches, because these matches WrestleMania has already been filmed now. I believe the Performance Center is shut down, and a lot of these matches were filmed within the last week. So this isn't going to be live. Nothing's going to be happening live. All this stuff's going to be in the can. So what makes it a little more interesting is they should have plenty of time to perfect this if they need. If anything was botched, if anything was messed up, if they want to edit anything out, if they want to add, subtract, plenty of time to do that. They can set this up very well and in a different way than they can with a live show, where things run over. You don't have the opportunity always to just cut something when it's in the middle like that. Where are we off to next? Sami Zayn versus Daniel Bryan. I mean, talk about a match that could really steal a show. These two, this is like a dream match for a while. Hopefully they get a chance to really work. This could be just an excellent, excellent match. I'm looking really forward to this match, which means that it'll be like a 2-minute squash one way or the other, or some kind of weird, stupid interference, and then get it. I would love for them to get at least 15 minutes and get an opportunity to go back and forth here with Sami Zayn with Cesaro and Nakamura in the corner, and then Daniel Bryan with Drew Gulak. He's had some. Daniel Bryan's been. I think this is something that he's probably liked as of late, getting to work with a lot of these, Cesaro, Nakamura, Gulak, Sami. He's been in the main event picture before. I think he probably has more fun doing something like this. Kevin Owens, Seth Rollins. The last week, both of these guys cut really good promos. They did. It was Rollins, earlier. I think it was like a week. Rollins first, and then Owens came back with an excellent promo. Go look up their recent ones. They really build this match very well. And this is another one where, you look at Owens, Rollins, you look at Sami, D-Bry. Those two matches should be really, really good in ring. Wouldn't be shocked if the women's tag, Kabuki Warriors, Alexa Bliss could be really good in ring. Like Rhea Ripley, Charlotte Flair for the NXT title. Charlotte should win this match. She should. She should win this match. She should get the NXT title, and Ripley should have to kind of challenge back for it and chase her a little bit. And, Charlotte can drop it for whatever reason, maybe not even lose it, but she should win this. It'll give NXT a little bit of a boost, I think. Sounds weird. The main wrestler winning, giving NXT a little bit of a boost, but I think it will. I don't know if Rhea should quite go completely over Charlotte here yet. Bayley versus Lacey Evans versus Naomi versus Sasha Banks versus Tamina. Fatal 5-way elimination match. When it's elimination, you think that it's going to be one of two things. It's either going to come down to Bayley, Sasha, or we're going to see Sasha eliminate Bayley early on. And so that, I'm assuming one of those things. It would be best if it came down to Bayley, Sasha in the end. Give them, a good 5 to 10 minutes when it's just the two of them going at it, and they could give us a good little worked finish. Let's see, where else are we going? John Cena versus The Fiend. I don't really like this. We've already seen John Cena, Bray Wyatt before. I don't like the fact that they had The Fiend just lose like that to Goldberg. I think it hurt a lot of his momentum. I'm not expecting a whole lot of this match, so hopefully it can pleasantly surprise me. I do think anytime Cena's around, it's a big deal, but he's great with the crowd to feed off of. And this match, I don't know, it's going to be a Firefly Funhouse match, so maybe just being something different and like with the opportunity to have plenty of time to work on this, it won't just be these two in a ring. So it'll be a little bit different, at least than the version of this that we've seen before. Where else are we going? Edge, Randy Orton. I've loved everything about this. I think they're both just cutting great promos to set up for this. Randy's doing some of his best work in years, and I'm not really a Randy Orton fan. I think you can tell a lot of times when he's kind of checked out and he's half-assing it. This has not been the case in this feud. It's good. It's good work. I think they'll have a good match, and Edge is one of the best promos right now. He's cutting better promos than he ever has before. This could be really fun. I like what they've done with this so far. It's intense, and they've gotten personal with it. Lots to like about this. It could be a very heated match, and it could be really good. So you see, I haven't been like really. It's hard to be really high on everything that's been happening, but with the roster as talented as they are, all of these matches, or most of them, have a high ceiling. They have the opportunity to be really good, especially when they're going to be pre-recorded with the chance to be edited and cut down and any mistakes cut out. So we're to The Undertaker versus AJ Styles. Yes, that same Undertaker who we're going to talk about in WrestleMania 7, making his debut back in 1991. He's still going. against AJ Styles. I like the angle and the approach they've taken with this feud, where AJ's gotten a little bit personal, talking about the pictures that Undertaker's wife posts on social media, and their Undertaker came back and just cut the best Undertaker promo he's ever cut. It was very personal at AJ, and they're both using their real names, and AJ could get a good match out of him. And this match and the Goldberg match, these matches are the ones that could really benefit with some editing, right? They can cut a sloppy spot or two out if they have to, reshoot anything that they had to. It should be AJ, right? Becky Lynch versus Shayna. This would be a good time for Shayna to win, for Becky to lose and have to kind of chase again. She's gotten a little bit stale, a little bit stagnant. I haven't really been too much of a fan, honestly, of the whole badass Becky character. I kind of liked her a lot more as the goofy character, and her matches have been, in the last year, not as great or not as good as I've hoped or expected. Is probably because I expect a lot out of her. We'll see here. This could be a good match. Shayna's a very good heel. Does good heel work. I think this should be a chance for Shayna to get a win, and Becky can chase. And the top two matches, Goldberg versus Roman Reigns. We've heard that Roman Reigns will not be wrestling. Roman Reigns is recovering from he has had leukemia. He's fine now. He's been wrestling. He's just had it previously, and with the virus going around, anyone that has had bad health is a little more prone to it, so he chose not to wrestle, which was definitely going to change some plans around. And the rumor is that filling in for Roman Reigns will be Braun Strowman in this match. We'll find out for sure on Friday. And I just on SmackDown, I really think that if it is Strowman, they should be beating Goldberg. Goldberg shouldn't be winning and continuing on a reign right now. He can only really wrestle in spots. He can't go very long. I just don't think it's right for him to be the champ. You can put the belt on Braun or whoever's in this match for a short time, and then Roman can beat them whenever Roman is ready to come back, or whenever you have your next big event. And then we have Brock Lesnar versus Drew McIntyre. And I feel bummed that there's no crowd for Drew McIntyre, because they were doing a good job really building him up, and he deserves to win this match right now. He's gotten kind of an organic build too after winning the Royal Rumble, to where it seems like he's not been forced down your throat, and the crowd has responded very well to him. And Drew had a really nice kind of redemption story after leaving WWE years back, after being the chosen one, and now getting an opportunity to be in the quote-unquote main event of WrestleMania. This is going to be a real different WrestleMania. So running down it real quick, I hope Otis should win this match against Dolph. I think it's going to be Alexa and Nikki that get the win in the Sami Daniel Bryan match. Daniel doesn't need the win, but D-Bry should get that win there too. Edge should beat Orton unless they want to keep that feud going, but Edge should get the win here after everything that's gone on. Elias, King Corbin, let's go Elias. Aleister Black should beat Bobby Lashley. Street Profits should hold on to it. Let's say Miz and Morrison hold on to it. KO should get the win over Rollins after Rollins has mentioned that KO has had no Mania success. You got to give KO the win here. AJ's got to get over Taker. That's who I'm picking. I think Sasha gets the win in the women's title match. Cena versus Wyatt. Let's go Fiend. It's got to be the Fiend there. Becky Lynch versus Shayna. I think Shayna's got a shot to win and take the title from Becky. Goldberg versus whoever, even if let's say Braun. I'm going with opponent of Goldberg. I'm going with Braun. Give it to Braun. Let him run with it for a bit before you get back to Roman. Rhea Ripley versus Charlotte Flair. Let's go Charlotte. Charlotte should win this, get the NXT title to add to her title lineage. And then Brock Lesnar versus Drew McIntyre. Will they give it to Drew without the fans? The problem is you don't know when you're going to have a show with fans. It's not like, 2 weeks from now it's going to happen, or a month from. We just don't know. So you can't continue to string these storylines out and out and out. You have to have a definitive ending to some of them, and this might be one of them. let's give Drew McIntyre the big win. Those are my predictions and thoughts for Mania. We'll be watching and tweeting along. Make sure to follow us on Twitter. It's me, Gino B, as we go through Mania and we have some fun. We'll be having a few drinks and watching and kicking back and enjoying the shows on Saturday and Sunday. Back by popular demand to recap another WrestleMania. We're going to go back in time again and we'll recap WrestleMania 7 this time. We're going to talk about Hulk Hogan versus Sergeant Slaughter, Ultimate Warrior versus the Macho Man Randy Savage. We have a blindfold match with Jake the Snake versus Rick the Model Martel. Lots to talk about on this WrestleMania recap. We bring in Darin Andrew and Andrew Champagne. Guys, thanks for coming back again. We had a lot of fun talking about WrestleMania 3. I got to say, though, when I put the poll up to vote, it was WrestleMania 6, 7, 8, or 9. And I'm a little bit surprised that this is the one out of those 4 that won. I probably would have ranked it in my head if I was just assuming how the voting would have been. I probably thought this would have been the 3rd of 4.
Yeah, I thought 6 was a shoo-in because
me too. Yeah.
Hogan Warrior.
I tried to rig the ballot box. I really did, you know.
I really thought, and then I thought it was a toss-up between 7 and 8. You know, where it would come down. But yeah, I really thought Hogan Warrior and the Sky Dome, and what was also just generally a good show.
Yeah, fun kind of big full show. You know.
Yeah, but I was surprised, but going back and rewatching 7 the way I did, and jotting down some fun notes from some things that I have in the back of my head on some of these guys. And, I really forgot as we get into it, like, some of these matches that, kind of like just waft over you, like a couple of them were really good. And
they're sneaky good.
Yeah, they are. And I almost forgot like how good a couple of the matches really were. So it was good from that standpoint that I got to go back and watch. And there's a lot of interesting storylines and a lot of backstory that we're going to get into in terms of what went on with the lead up to WrestleMania 7 and some strange things that happened, and then some of the angles in WrestleMania 7 that really pushed the envelope really, really hard. And it really does make, when you tie all of that together, for a fascinating show.
I would just like to thank the people that voted in this poll for not voting WrestleMania 9. You all have so much more mercy than I thought you did, and I am so grateful for you because WrestleMania 9, with a couple of very small, brief exceptions, is a show that should never be watched by anyone of sound mind at all for any reason. So to everybody out there, thank you for sparing us that anguish. I can't speak for Gino or Darin, but I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, it's good because I've got a couple of people without sound minds that are going to recap WrestleMania 9 with me next week already. It's going to be Jason Beam and Danny Kovaloff. They're going to come on early in the week, and we're going to go back in time and recap 9, mainly because Jason Beam was like ecstatic and wanting to talk about it, and Danny Kovaloff was at that WrestleMania live. So he's going to have
Danny Kovaloff's cats at that WrestleMania. That's my thing.
Yeah,
his
so
93,173 cats might have been conquering another planet at that point. But you're right, of sound mind. I can't speak for Jason. I've never had the pleasure of meeting him, gone back and forth with him a couple of times. But my goodness, you and Danny, oh boy, that's gonna be a must listen though for sure. I'm looking forward to that one.
So we'll have to see how things play out again next week. But ideally, we'll as long as there's not a whole lot of sports going, we'll keep going maybe for another couple of weeks with some of these WrestleMania shows. If you guys want to come back, and then maybe as the calendar starts to change a little bit, maybe we can start to do the same thing later in the year with some SummerSlams as we get closer there, or maybe a King of the Ring. Who knows? Some of these good shows to go back and watch. But hopefully, maybe next week we can throw in some of the little bit later Manias. Maybe we can get into either 10 or 13 or some of those as they kind of start to creep into the Attitude Era. But like I said, some of the more recent Manias, they're fun. They're fun to watch live. But man, just having to go back and rewatch one of them would absolutely be a chore at 6 or 7 hours.
Yeah, no, it really is. And when you go through, last year's Mania was a lot of fun because, I got to go and we had the tailgate with the Mania Club beforehand. But it's funny because, my friends and I and my wife, we were saying, the best part of the day for us was the tailgate at the Mania Club.
Yeah, before everything even starts.
Yeah, we were all dressed up. I went as, obviously everybody knows, as Roman Reigns. And, one of my friends, went as Nikolai Volkov. Another guy went as the Iron Sheik, who looked, phenomenal. I mean, it was so much fun. Then you get there and you're into it, and you got to go through the pre-show and the battle royals. And now it's like 3 hours into the main show, and you're like, holy crap, man, it's only 9:30.
Yeah.
Like, we're not going to see Becky Lynch for 3 hours.
And that's the benefit of being out here on the West Coast, man. It was only 9 p.m. when Joan Jett played Bad Reputation to bring Ronda Rousey out to the ring.
Yeah. And by the way, it got cold last year. Like, it was a beautiful day. It was like in the upper 60s. But by the time that match went on, it was probably like 48, 49 degrees. And I remember I looked at my wife and I said, Amanda, I don't care what fireworks are blasting off. I don't care if the Ultimate Warrior comes back from the dead to raise this woman's arm in the middle of the ring. The minute the referee hits 3,
we're out.
Bolting out of here. I was in the car when her music was still playing, and I walked in my front door in about 25 minutes.
Oh, that's great. That's great. So let's get a quick hit. So WrestleMania, we're recording this like late Thursday night. It'll be out early Friday. And WrestleMania this year going to be a very different WrestleMania. It's going to be 2 nights on Saturday and Sunday. It looks like it'll be pretty evenly split. I think there are 16 matches carded. From what I understand, almost all of it, if not all of it, has already been pre-recorded. I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of live, maybe something with Gronk. I don't even know, because I think the Performance Center as of now has been shut down for a little while. So Darin, will give me a thought or two, and then Andrew, whether it be a match, a storyline, kind of an overall big picture thing. What are you thinking heading into WrestleMania this year?
I mean, look, I don't know what to think, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I don't know if the circumstances change the outcome of any matches. It certainly could. Do they not want to have Drew McIntyre go over with nobody there? Do they want to save that maybe for SummerSlam, where there might be people in the arena and he gets the pop that they want him to get? Maybe. So from that standpoint and the storylines and where they're going to go with things, I don't really know what to think. Now, that being said, there are matches that I'm certainly excited for. The Rhea Ripley-Charlotte Flair match, I think, will just be a tremendous in-ring match. I'm curious to see what they do with Lesnar and McIntyre. I don't know at this point. I have avoided all spoilers. So as of this moment, I don't know who's replacing Roman Reigns. You guys might. I don't know. And I've specifically avoided the clickbait to do that.
Yeah, I don't really like the spoilers either. And we don't. And I've seen who people have projected, but I haven't seen anything that says definitively.
I could guess,
there's only a few people on a short list that aren't involved in something that would be able to kind of be shoehorned into that spot against Goldberg that make a lot of sense. So, and maybe if they want to get the belt off of Goldberg, who knows? I don't know if they had Goldberg planned for a really long run here. This just felt like it was like a little small run to give Roman Reigns another win over a big legend and to kind of help build him.
And not get booed out of the arena if he beats him.
Yeah.
But speaking of the Fiend, I'm curious to see what they do there with that Firefly Funhouse match. I still don't know what a Boneyard match is. The most curious thing I'm interested in with the Taker Styles match is what character we get from the Undertaker. I think they've kind of played up the whole American Badass thing again, so I'm curious to see where that goes. The 2 matches that I'm most looking forward to in terms of like actual in-ring, Kevin Owens and Seth Rollins, I think would be fantastic. And obviously, I cannot wait to watch Edge in a one-on-one match again. So, that's what I'm looking forward to. But in terms of what to expect, I could guess these matches, and I could be completely wrong just because of the unknown of it.
The different dynamic.
Yeah. Exactly.
What do you think, Andrew?
Well, I maintain that the best thing they can do with replacing Roman Reigns is give Hulk Hogan a call and have him cut a promo along the lines of, well, let me tell you something about the coronavirus, brother. I maintain that is the best possible way they could do that. But kidding aside, I'm actually going to lead into WrestleMania 7 because I think there are a lot of parallels between what's happening now and what happened with WrestleMania 7. You hinted at this right off the rip. WrestleMania 7 had a lot of things going on behind the scenes that were sort of unprecedented. At the time, the United States was fighting Iraq in the Gulf War. It was a situation where there were a lot of security concerns around big events. There are stories about the Super Bowl with the flyover. There were stories about this, WrestleMania 7. The story WWE tells is that they moved WrestleMania 7 from the LA Coliseum to the LA Sports Arena. This was allegedly due to security concerns per the WWE. Now, how much you believe of that is up for speculation, because there were also reports tickets were not moving as far as the LA Coliseum was concerned. If you've never been to the Coliseum, it's obviously a giant building. The LA Sports Arena, a much smaller venue, still sizable, and it still looked okay on camera, but certainly far smaller than the LA Coliseum. So a lot of weird things went on with WrestleMania 7, a lot of weird things happening now. And the more I think about it, the more I think that might be the reason we're talking about this now.
You're right.
Because a lot of longtime wrestling fans maybe are channeling a little bit of what went on in WrestleMania 7
That's a good point.
with what's going on now.
Yeah, that's a good point. And it's just going to be different. And what's amazing is that as we get into to recap the show, WrestleMania 7, which, as Andrew mentioned, was in Los Angeles, California here on, March the 24th, my 4-year-old birthday there. And I can guarantee you I was sitting right here watching it live. I still remember it because I had the pay-per-view. I had the black box. So I got every pay-per-view of WWE ever, like leading up to whenever the black boxes went away, for free. I just flipped the little switch in the back. I got everything. Sometimes I got the naughty channels too if I wanted, but I got everything there. And WWE pay-per-views, boxing events, WCW, you name it, all the big shows. This was one of them. What's crazy is that this was the debut of The Undertaker. Yep. And we're at WrestleMania 36, and he is still going strong. He will be having a match against AJ Styles this weekend. So I don't think from a scope, from a scale, compared to the WrestleMania that we just talked about last week, WrestleMania 3, this one wasn't the same. It was different. The fans are still pretty damn crazy for a lot of the baby faces in here, a lot of really, really big pops. And there are some definite moments from this show. Maybe there aren't all a ton of, 5-star classic matches, but there are at least 3 or 4 what we would consider like WrestleMania moments as we dive in to this one. Andrew, you set it up really well, as they were supposed to be at the Coliseum, and when you watch the shows right before this, like Royal Rumble 91, or I think even Survivor Series 90, you see the promos and the previews for the WrestleMania at the Coliseum, and that was not the case in here. We get the Vince start. This is as kind of Andrew mentioned too, the tone of this being in the Gulf War, super patriotic show, lots of red, white, and blue, lots of USA chants through the crowd. We actually kick off the show. I think that's the reason why they kick off the show with Hacksaw Jim Duggan in the commentary booth. There were, I think, 2 different times throughout the show when Bobby the Brain Heenan had matches where he had to go to manage at ringside, and then he stepped out for a few minutes. So we start out with Gorilla and Hacksaw Jim Duggan on commentary, and Willie Nelson singing America the Beautiful. He's got to be high as he's singing this here, you would just imagine. And I'm just watching him thinking, man, this guy is just stoned out of his mind for sure. And like every single year, Gorilla says it's going to be the best WrestleMania ever. And then we get set for our first match. The one thing I thought was really funny that Hacksaw said, and I wrote down, I took a note. He said he thinks the Warrior is going to beat Macho Man because the Warrior is better trained and better conditioned, which was like, you could tell me a bunch of things about the Warrior, like stronger, he's overpowering, but like Randy Savage was probably the best in shape and the best conditioned wrestler of this era. And
go ahead, Andrew. I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, if you're not talking Ric Flair, it's got to be Randy Savage, right?
Yeah, no, it is. And I noticed that too. And another thing that I noticed is when he said that, there's a look on Gorilla's face where he's got like this laughing smile. And I'm looking at it, and I'm trying to say, okay, that reaction is one of 2 things. Either he's laughing because he's saying that Ultimate Warrior is the better conditioned wrestler, or he's happy that he actually put together a coherent sentence in analyzing a match as the color commentator. I don't know which it is. It could have been both.
Piggybacking off of that, I actually thought that once the match started, the opening match between the Rockers and Haku and the Barbarian, I thought Hacksaw Jim Duggan was shockingly good on commentary.
Yeah, he's not bad. He really isn't. I liked Hacksaw a lot more later when I saw him in the show that was on the WWE Network, right when the WWE Network started, when they were what was it called? When they were Legends House. When he came off pretty well on that. Him and Piper had like a fun, like kind of cute relationship, that they became really buddy, and I thought he came off pretty well on that show. It was actually not bad programming, like right when the WWE Network started. So yeah, we get into a match, and you know what I noticed with this show, and in particular with a lot of these early Manias, they do a really good job of getting the right match to open the show. This was a good one. We got a promo from the Rockers before. It was really funny to see such a basic promo from Shawn Michaels, who would become such a mainstay in WrestleMania for years to come. Funny when you look at like Shawn Michaels here and Undertaker here, to think that they would one day have one of the best, if not maybe the best WrestleMania match ever. This was good. This was a good opener. Huge pop for the Rockers. I mean, they are like crazy over here. Back and forth, a good finish with a missile drop kick, crossbody, real quick, a lot of action. They did a good job working, and you know what? Haku and the Barbarian were also really good in here in this spot. Barbarian to me was just like a much better tag wrestler when he had someone to kind of work off here. This was a good opener. Yeah,
damn good match. Meltzer, I looked it up. Meltzer only gave it 3.5 stars. I thought it was a 4-star match.
I thought so too. Yeah.
It's what you would expect. The Rockers are doing their high flying, crazy stuff. A lot of the double moves, the double drop kicks, the double moves off the top rope, and you're getting the typical power that you would see from Haku and Barbarian. And one of the interesting things about this match, this is 6 months after the Rockers won but didn't really win the tag team championships from the Hart Foundation.
Yep.
When they had that match on what would have been Saturday Night Main Event that was taped to go on the show.
And the ring broke, the rope broke.
The rope broke 2 out of 3 falls. And you can actually see it on YouTube where the Rockers win and there's a pop and they get handed the belts. And they actually defended those titles a few nights later against Power and Glory. And then WWE McMahon said, no, we're going to change this up. We're going to take the belts off them and give them back to the Hart Foundation. There was a lot of talk that the Harts were, splitting up at that time. I think Anvil might have been possibly getting fired. I think he had a back injury. So the Hart Foundation was getting towards the end of their run. But it's really interesting that happened and they never put the belts back on the Rockers. But, this was a great match. I thought Jannetty stole the match.
He was great.
Taking great bumps. Selling the crap out of everything. Employing that big stick and move approach, flying all over the place. He gets 2 backbreakers at one point that he just sells, and you get like those ahs and gasps from the crowd. There was a big high cross body he tried in the Barbarian, who rolled into a power slam. Then you get the big hot tag to Shawn near the end. The place goes crazy. You get the double drop kicks off the top, the double moves off the top. Huge pop when they get the 1, 2, 3. Just a really good match for what is actually going to be the last 7 or 8 months of the Rockers, a team that began, I think, in 1984, and this is pretty much the last year of their run because obviously they would have that tremendous split up at the barbershop the following winter.
The spot that I like the most in this match comes really early. Shawn and Marty double team Haku with a double elbow drop. They do the double kip up. And then the Barbarian just steamrolls them both with a double clothesline. And that's such a great spot. And it's a good match. It's a really solid opener. And a lot of what the Rockers are doing holds up over time.
It does.
This is stuff the Young Bucks are doing in every single match. It's stuff they've been doing in every single match for about 10 years, if we're being honest. Haku and the Barbarian were by no means master in-ring technicians, but they were a really fun powerhouse tag team, both here and later on in WCW as the faces of Fear. And this match worked. You had speed and power. You had a crowd that was very hot and wanted to cheer something, and the Rockers gave them plenty to cheer about. Michaels pinning Haku after the crossbody, and it's a really good match, fun opener. And this is something that we looked at it with WrestleMania 3 as well. Good opener, really good tag team formula with speed against power. Some things just work.
Yeah. It was fun, and then we get to backstage. Mean Gene, he's there with a couple of celebrities. Like always, there's going to be a Mean Gene flirting with one of the girls segment, like a little interaction. Mean Gene just always trying to shoot his shot, and he's talking to Marla Maples, who was the second wife of Donald Trump. He's actually talking to Regis Philbin a little bit too, and then he has some a little goofy shtick with Alex Trebek there, and super young Alex Trebek, super young Regis. They were going for kind of the like Hollywood type because they were in LA. So this was just kind of fun and goofy. And then we get Bobby Heenan joining Gorilla, so we get that good team getting ready to start. But it is kind of funny how much Trump, we see Trump a little bit later, but how much he was involved in early WWE.
Yeah. You get him like a little interview, and that's times during the show you sit in there front row. I mean, he was at 3 of the 4 WrestleManias during the stretch, 4, 5, and 7. So yeah, and then of course, obviously later on when he has the the hair for hair match, where he's represented and Vince is represented by Umaga. And he was represented by Lashley, right? It was Bobby Lashley.
Yeah, it was Bobby Lashley. Yeah.
So he's done a lot of work, and obviously we know that Trump and McMahon have a long history and actually friends. So, that still runs today.
Yeah, and that was a fun segment in back with Alex Trebek and Gino Okerlund doing the Abbott and Costello who, what, form of a question type thing.
It was on
by
first,
no means high concept humor, but it works, and both guys played their parts really, really well. By the way, Regis Philbin doesn't look like he's aged a whole heck of a lot.
You're right, he looks great.
That guy's plastic surgeon's got to make a lot of money.
And then when Bobby the Brain comes in and he sits down and he, and Gorilla's like, wow, look at the stars that Mean Gene's with, and he says, yeah, they're a bunch of ham and eggers. And then that's like the first line. It's like one of his first lines when he sits down, and you know what? This is another just a really good show for him. It's like every time you kind of forget that he's there, he comes with just some really awesome commentary at some point. That leads us into the Texas Tornado versus Dino Bravo. What a sad match to watch back. Not because it was, bad or like a bad match or anything. It's just this was a match that we're starting to build up Texas Tornado. This was his only WrestleMania match. 2 years after this match, he died. He committed suicide. He was part of that big Texas Von Erich wrestling family. And then Dino Bravo, this was also his last WrestleMania match. He died in 1993. Rumored to have been killed by the Mafia. So by 1993, by 2 years after this, both of these guys are passed away.
Yeah, Bravo's real name was Adolfo Bresciano. He was actually an Italian guy, and he actually married into the Mafia. I think the niece of somebody who was in the mob, and I think they said he was involved in like a cigarette smuggling enterprise or something like that, and they think that that's what it was. And Kerry Von Erich, I mean, talk about the Von Erich family. They're like the Kennedys of wrestling.
No, yeah, it's a good comparison.
I mean, just a huge name in wrestling with so much tragedy. I mean, you think about the first brother, was it David, I believe, the first brother?
David, yep.
Yeah, that died. But he actually had health issues. He was found, I believe, dead in the hotel room. And I think that was back in like 1984. And then you had the other 2 brothers that committed suicide. Kerry Von Erich Tornado himself was in a terrible motorcycle accident where he ended up losing his foot. And this is, wrap your head around this. This guy wrestled for like 8 years with a prosthetic foot that the vast majority of people, even in the locker room, did not know.
No.
And they didn't know because he took a shower with his boots on. I mean, it's like you think
the
about
stories. There's a movie about him, and it's just I think 5 of the 6 sons died before Fritz.
Yes, yeah,
and it's just very, very sad.
There's a lot of good stuff with Kerry Von Erich that you could pull up on YouTube. A lot of his original matches in WCCW, the Von Erich Freebird rivalry,
yes,
which was incredible. I mean, that went on for years, which actually started out of a Kerry Von Erich Ric Flair cage match. It was like the beginning of the Freebird Von Erich feud, and then you could actually find Kerry Von Erich when he won the NWA championship against Ric Flair in Texas Stadium in front of like 45,000 people in '84. That match is actually on YouTube. It's fun to watch. Came out flying in WWF, won the Intercontinental title from Perfect in 1990, but never really had the run that you thought he would. And obviously he was battling a lot of demons, unfortunately. The match itself, it's short. It is what it is. Bravo gets some offense in to begin, goes in for kind of like this, what looked like a jump off the top rope, but he really just kind of fell into the tornado, gave him that claw. You get the tornado spin punch, and that was the end of the match. There wasn't a whole lot to it, but I couldn't really help but, like you said, just thinking about how this match was just a foreshadowing for just two tragic figures. It was so sad, yeah.
We could talk for hours about the Von Erich family and all of the things that went on there. The story that I will tell is the one that David Manning, the former world-class referee, tells when he found out David Von Erich had died in his hotel room in Japan. He gets the call, and he floors it to where Fritz lived. He said it was about an hour and a half drive that he made in closer to an hour because he was just flooring it down the streets in Texas. He gets there. It's early in the morning. He knocks on Fritz's door. Fritz opens the door, looks at David, and says, "Which one?" Ugh. It's just, it's gut-wrenching. And you look at what's going on, what happened with that family, and there's a couple of different documentaries about it. WWE did a good one on World Class. Yes. There's an independent documentary out there where they focus a little bit more on the TV production side of things. That one is also excellent. It shows Kevin Von Erich walking through the Sportatorium right before it gets torn down. That's an emotional roller coaster for sure. This match, I think Darin summed it up perfectly. It is what it is. Dino Bravo's not good. Kerry's peak was many years before this. He was battling his own demons, and there are various accounts from people like Bret Hart and Ric Flair that basically say he was impaired with various substances pretty much all the time. If you look at his match against Jerry Lawler at one of the old AWA Super Clash matches, it's a tremendous match, but if you notice, he comes out bleeding from his bicep, and they have to work it into the match. They do. And it's a great match. It's a bloody match. It's not for the faint of heart. It's something that is on YouTube, I believe. If not, it's also in rotation on the old ESPN Classic channel, if anybody out there still gets that. But just what could have been with the Von Erich family. Kerry does get his WrestleMania moment, but it's really tough to appreciate it given everything else that was going down.
They also did a Dark Side of the Ring on the Von Erichs, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
they did.
Was that rough? I mean,
that's a great series. It's a great series, too, these Dark Side of the Rings.
Yeah, but if you haven't seen the one, if you haven't seen any of them, watch them because you're going to learn stuff that it's going to blow your mind on all the topics. But if you didn't see the one on the Von Erichs, by all means, it's must watch.
Up next, I think is one of the matches that Darin was probably alluding to when he talked about some kind of hidden decent matches. We get a little promo in the back with Sean Mooney, who is great, and Sean Mooney has kind of resurfaced recently, doing some stuff. He has a podcast. I know Conrad got him back and kind of evolved a little bit with some of the conventions that they do, and I think he even did a thing or two with AEW initially, and now he's actually doing some stuff with the NWA again. He was actually on NWA Power on YouTube and did some episodes with them. But Sean Mooney is in the back interviewing the Warlord and Slick, the Warlord who looks just like a bigger, more blew up Stone Cold. He really does. He has that look. And the Warlord and the Barbarian were in a bad tag team. You know, a couple years prior to this, they were like a big, powerful tag team that were just kind of a different dynamic to some of the smaller, quicker tag teams. And we have another match that's kind of built around the Full Nelson here. This is kind of the British Bulldog's first, he's getting his run now as a singles competitor. I'm looking at this match on paper, and I remember they had like the entire 1991 was these two guys like going at it. They wrestled at WrestleMania. At SummerSlam, they were in a six-man tag match against each other. In the Survivor Series, they were in a tag match on opposite sides. And then they had another singles match at this Tuesday in Texas at the end of 1991. So they were back and forth all year. These two guys had really good chemistry. I was like so pleasantly surprised with this match when I watched it. The crowd was really into Bulldog. Warlord was getting crazy heat. And, I mean, both of these guys look jacked. I read something where they're like, there's no way they're passing a wellness test nowadays. I mean, they are just huge. But this was fun. It was a quicker pace than I had ever thought or remembered it was. And the crowd was really into it. You know what? I was pleasantly surprised with this match.
Yeah. Funny thing, you mentioned the Barbarian and the Warlord tag team. Meltzer actually called them the worst tag team of 1989. Go for it. But yeah, I mean, Bulldog is like 8 or 9 months removed from a terrible car accident.
Yeah.
Where he was involved with I think it was in July of 8. I think it was July 4th of 89. Actually, he ended up getting like 130 stitches in his head. But when he used to wrestle over in Japan from 88 to 90 after him and Dynamite split up. But he came back, starts his run here. The one thing that you know about Bulldog is that for a big, powerful guy, he can move. I mean, quick off the ropes, and he does things that you wouldn't expect from a guy like his size. But you're right, that these two just had chemistry together. When you put them opposite the ring from one another, you get buzz from the crowd. You know, you would have a Heenan, really playing it up. Look at these guys, and you would just be like, well, who's gonna outpower the other guy? And you get that cool moment here, after the full Nelson where, Warlord goes for the power slam, Bulldog reverses it, and Monsoon's going nuts. He got him up. You didn't think he'd be able to do it. Heenan's yelling, I can't believe it. It's just it's great stuff, and the match itself, for two bruisers that are knocking each other all over the ring, just like we said, a hidden gem of this card. I thought it was a really good match for two guys that, like you said, go at it all year and make for a really fun rivalry.
Darin, just to give you an idea of how similarly we viewed this match, my notes on this match legitimately say surprisingly fun power match. I'm literally reading them off right there as they are. And we feel pretty similarly about this. You think about the Warlord, you don't exactly think 5-star machine or big match Warlord or anything of the sort. He was a big dude that looked like something out of the 80s because that's what he was. He was a power and paint dude, big menacing heel. The Bulldog, meanwhile, I think gets a little bit of a bad rap with the exception of a couple of matches that we know about with Brett and with Shawn. Yes, he looked like a musclehead. Yes, he was on some stuff. In fact, Gino, you mentioned not being able to pass a wellness test now. He didn't pass a wellness test in the early 90s.
Yeah.
He and Warrior actually got fired when the steroid stuff came down that Vince was dealing with. Both he and Warrior failed drug tests, or so the story goes. But Bulldog could work. And there are some times where I feel like he doesn't get his due because he was overshadowed by Dynamite Kid, one of the best in-ring performers of all time. He was overshadowed by Brett, his brother-in-law. This is a guy who, if you put him in a time machine, take him 30 years in the future, there are things that he could do with current wrestlers that would be really fun to watch.
Yeah.
And that's evidenced because his kid's doing a lot of that stuff over in All Japan. But meanwhile, this was a fun match. Bulldog's power slam is a thing of beauty, as always. They do the full Nelson thing, and I miss when you could build suspense around a submission move like WWE did with the full Nelson with a number of wrestlers in the late 80s and early 90s. We talked about a match at WrestleMania 3 that spotlighted that. The Warlord has it. It's just not something that gets done anymore. There are very few submission holds now where if you get in them, you're done and the match is over. In fact, there are very few finishers like that in general, but that's a different subject for a different time. This match was a lot of fun. I didn't remember it being a lot of fun, so I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, one thing I'll also add, you know that Vince really liked the Bulldog for the amount of times that he kept coming back over the years.
Yes. Yep.
Kept bringing, he comes back SummerSlam 94. He's in the crowd, in the corner of Brett. They play up the whole Anvil and Owen, Brett Bulldog thing. Bring him back again. By the way, Royal Rumble 95, when him and Shawn go the distance together, basically. Bulldog's performance in that Royal Rumble is phenomenal.
It was awesome.
Phenomenal.
So good.
Yeah, so good. For a guy, again, his size. But then he comes back and he's in the Cornette stable and he has the thing with the Survivor Series and the wild card match. Just so
Gene's late with the Rock.
Yeah.
Even he had a match.
He got rock bottomed into the dog poop. Yeah.
They bring him back so many times, and it just goes to show you how much they thought of him in terms of his character and his work. And him. I think he died. I think he was young. He was probably in his lower 40s. But yeah, very, very sad. Another one that was gone way too soon. Incredible worker, and like Andrew said, and like we said before, this is one of those matches that when I went back and I watched it, and I said, "Wow, you know what? I forgot that this was a damn good match."
And he was one of a few in this era that could connect with the fans without really cutting like a world beater promo. You know, like he had a connection with the fans, but he wasn't ever really someone you would expect to give like a monster promo. It was all just very basic and very simple. But from the days with the Bulldogs, all the way through, and even in his Hart Foundation stuff when he was a heel later, he had that connection one way or the other with the fans. The fans really liked him. I think it was just he was another one that we would talk about, Kerry Von Erich, because as he got older and older, he was his own worst enemy. You know, it was just his own personal demons. And I don't know if you ever read like some of the book that Brett has out, and some of the book that his ex-wife or his wife had out, which were just talking about some of the things that he was doing and like how under the influence he was. Like apparently the whole 92 SummerSlam match, the main event, you know, like Brett carried him because he was just like passed out almost before the match. He was so nervous and drugged up. So this guy, he had a sky's the limit of ability, and when he was able to kind of clean himself up for periods of time, he was able to flash it quite a bit. And this was a good match for him and a good year in 91 and then into 92 where he won the IC title. Next matchup was the Hart Foundation versus the Nasty Boys. We got a couple fun promos right before this match too. The Nasty Boys said, "We're gonna put an end to the stink in the pink" right before the match started, and then we got insane Jim the Anvil Neidhart. You're gonna crack the foundation. You're gonna rock the foundation. I mean, it was really good. A couple fun promos before we got this match started.
Yeah, that promo from Anvil was almost like an Ultimate Warrior thing where, like, you didn't really understand his point. You know,
exactly.
Like, you got to be at the bottom of the foundation, and that's where you're going to be. And you're like, well, you just said in order to crack the foundation, they got to be at the bottom.
And they are.
They're going to be at the bottom. You know, so it's like, it's just typical. And then Hitman picks it up, and he's like, yeah, you're at the bottom of the barrel, you know, trying to, like, figure it out. But, you know, one thing about this is the last match of the Hart Foundation.
It is.
Yeah, Anvil was on his way out. Brett, you know, is going to begin, obviously, the solo career, which is going to lead up to, you know, SummerSlam 91 with the unbelievable match with Mr. Perfect. And, of course, it'd be unbelievable. But, you know, the one thing I'll take away, I mean, we could talk about the Hart Foundation till we're blue in the face. I never liked the Nasty Boys, and I don't mean that from a character standpoint. I never thought they were any good. To me, they were really stiff in the ring. They didn't do a whole lot. I get it. I get their whole shtick. You know, if you're telling me that that's the kind of heels they are and the kind of things that they do, but it just got old for me. And a guy that like watched other territories and watched their work in WCW, how many times are these guys going to win with somebody throwing them something and, you know, hitting the guy with a helmet or hitting the guy with a megaphone? And it just got really old for me. And I mean, this was a good way to get the belts off the Harts and then, you know, get them over to the Legion of Doom in SummerSlam. But it's when I watched this match, it really just reminded me that I just never, ever appreciated or liked the Nasty Boys.
For me, the MVP of this match was Macaulay Culkin.
Yeah.
In the crowd right away, and that leads into a couple of cool little puns by Gorilla Monsoon and the folks on commentary. Now, on a serious note, Brett does everything this match.
Anvil's hurt.
His butt off.
Anvil's hurt.
The Anvil Neidhart runs people over, and the Nasty Boys are just sort of there. If they're a mid-card tag team act, they're fine. They get cheap heat doing some stuff. The part of the promo that I really liked was when they took Gino Gerlin's pocket square and used it as a handkerchief and then tried to stuff it back into his suit. There were certain things that they did where they were pretty good at gathering heat, but this was a performance from Brett that showed, okay, yeah, the Hart Foundation's going to be over, but Brett's going to be around for a really, really, really long time. There were a couple of really cool sequences in this match where all four guys were going at it with one another. Hart gives the Nasty Boys the helmet. They bash the helmet over the guy's head. They get the titles. By the way, unsung performance, not by Jimmy Hart, but by the people that did Jimmy Hart's wardrobe. If you watch very closely, he is in a different outfit every time he comes out. And that, I thought, was a brilliant little touch that we don't see anymore.
Macho Man WrestleMania 4, you know, coming out to the ring in a different every single time for each of his matches.
Dress.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, that's a great point. And this was This was good. This was a good tag match, like you mentioned. I think you hit it on the nail. It was Brett working. The heels did the typical heel shtick. And you just watch this match. Like you watch this match and some of the throughout the rest of the night, and it's just like obviously in kayfabe, the officiating was just awful. I mean, awful. Like you look at Hebner in this match, he's just missing everything that the Nasty Boys, and then he's all over the Hearts. Like anytime that Nyhart is just trying to get in the ring.
I'm glad you brought that up because that's one part of this match that bothered me. You have to get to the finish, and I get it. But when they do the heart attack, it's the same thing every time. I know. Brett goes in, he hits it, and you count the 3. Why this time? Does Hebner get out of the ring?
I know.
For the last 6 years, he's never done that.
It was.
It makes you wonder what courses they teach at Referee University. I would love to see a course calendar and a curriculum with prerequisites you have to take in order to get your stripes.
Yeah, well, that was funny, but this was a definitely a Brett calling card type match. This was great for Brett. Went about 12-10. Jimmy Hart celebrating like crazy after. The one thing I really did like about this show, though, it was very quick paced. Like at the end of every match, there wasn't a whole lot of celebrating in the ring. It was like, boom, match is over, promos for the next one, or straight to the video package just to set it up, boom, boom. So it felt like, especially early in the show, like these first 5 or 6 matches, it was like, boom, pretty good match, or good match storyline, boom, right to the next one. And we're immediately setting in the videos to set up the Snake versus Rick Martel. This is again like what we were talking about in WrestleMania 3. Even all these matches that aren't great, they all have really good builds, really good storylines. This was one of them, and this was something different. I think they're probably looking at what ended up being the blindfold match, and on paper, it probably seems like it would work a little bit better than it does. But I will say, we got a really, quick, just an unbelievable, like a 30-second Jake promo that is just like chilling to hear, and just a great Jake promo, and they focus in on his eyes. And no matter what, it's an 8-minute match where there's like very little ring work. They're just kind of trying to find each other throughout the match. The crowd is going ballistic throughout this match, trying to help Jake and trying to help him like figure out where the model is. It's just, it's fun. I think when I was younger, and I still don't mind the novelty to it, but when you're just kind of reviewing it as a match in itself, there's just not a lot there that goes on.
Yeah. When I watched this, because this I actually watched live as a kid, it was a lot of fun to watch when I'm 7-8 years old.
Mm-hmm.
But number one, you have the video lead up, and by the way, I mean Jake is so good. Like when he's in the doctor's office and they're putting the gauze on his eyes,
and he's just his reaction, and
the doctor's got like terrible bedside manner, and he's like, yeah, we're gonna see next week if you're born or not.
I know.
And it's like then you get like the next scene with Brother Love when you see the eye and he DDTs Brother Love, and what you don't realize is that stuff was months and months ago.
Yeah.
Like this stuff went on for like 6 months with Martel, and that's my problem with this match. The feud was built up for so damn long. And Jake was so good, and Martel was so good, that the blow-off for this tremendous
like a street fight
is an 8-minute blindfold match where you touch each other 4 times. Like that, like from that standpoint, looking back as I do now intellectually, makes no sense. Sure, there was some funny things. Martel would slam him, wait 7 seconds, Jake's not there, drop an elbow, and it's funny. Watching that kind of stuff is funny, and the crowd is into it. But looking back on it intellectually, the way that they blew off this feud just made no sense.
I remember seeing videos of this build. There was a countdown somewhere of the world's worst WrestleMania matches. This was high on the list, and for good reason. They showed some of the promos, and the line that I remember Jake Roberts saying, this is one of the few times I ever heard him yell on a microphone. He goes, Martel, I can't see you, but I can damn sure smell you. Name me one other wrestler that could have pulled that off. You can't.
No.
The promos, the storyline was so well done. And I have to imagine that if I was at WrestleMania and saw the match in person, it would have been a far different experience than if we were watching it here 30 years after the fact, or even live as it was happening, because the crowd went ballistic. And if you listen to Jake talking about it later, he talks about the psychology that went into it, and he's got this gigantic smile on his face. And you have to think it was fun, because if you're a wrestler in that kind of a match, you don't have to do a whole heck of a lot of work.
No.
I mean, Martel took one bump. It was the DDT, boom. And it was one of those things that, yeah, it's memorable. For a lot of people, it's memorable for the wrong reasons. If you're there, you know, it's probably remembered in a little bit more of a positive light. But watching the way that we have to watch, because in my case, I was 2 or 3 at the time. Gino, you were 4. Darin, you were probably the senior one of the group at 8 or 9.
I was 7 going on 8.
Yeah.
It's different, and it's best to remember the storyline as opposed to the blow off.
Bobby was pretty great here talking about how scary Jake is. You know, he was like, yeah, he's one of those seedy characters, and he goes bumping tonight. And Martel actually got him in a Boston Crab. Jake powers out, and then boom, DDT. After the match, Jake gets Damien the Snake out. He breaks the arrogance bottle. But even what you were kind of talking about, Darin, like Martel kind of gets off before he even gets he doesn't really get the total ton of comeuppance on him with a snake or anything. For all the build, it was like you just got the one DDT and the win. I would have liked to see to Jake be able to get a little bit more there, but this was this was more, I guess, about the angle than the match, and I still don't feel like they necessarily ended this angle well.
No, they didn't. I mean, this today, this would never happen. Obviously,
no,
they would never do a match like this ever again. This kind of a feud would have ended with a, either a TLC, or it would have been a Hell in the Cell, or if it was at a regular pay-per-view, it could have been a Pinfalls Count Anywhere. It would have been something with a crazy stipulation. There would have been kendo sticks and all kinds of stuff going on. Yeah, it just, looking back on it, it just leaves you flat, because the promo work was so good, and all of the vignettes and all of the videos that you see, and Jake Martel's wrestling Tito, and Jake goes flying in, and he's on top of Tito, and he thinks it's Martel, and he doesn't realize. That went on for months, and it ends with a match where 2 guys with a blindfold on their head. Just doesn't work.
Yeah, we get to Marla Maples and Jimmy Hart and the Nasty Boys. They're drinking and celebrating in the locker room, trying to interview them.
Stunk in that spot, man.
Oh, right.
Yeah. Earthquake, Dino. Oh,
just not great. So we then get to, when we talk about big moments on a show, how about this moment? Next up, it's The Undertaker with Paul Bearer, and he's making his WrestleMania debut against Jimmy Snuka. The Undertaker was only 26 years old at this time. He was booked as a heel, but since he was so different than a lot of what you saw in wrestling, he pretty much always got some pops. He always got at least a good reaction, and this was a 4-minute kind of squash. It was Snuka kind of as an elder statesman. It seemed like they were just kind of giving Snuka 4 or 5 chances to take down the Undertaker this way, and to show, wow, this Undertaker, you just can't get to him. This was a build for one of the greatest WWE performers of all time. It was pretty quickly right out of the ring and right to the setup for Macho King versus Ultimate Warrior, which was following. But this was, the first time we got to see Undertaker at WrestleMania, a massive streak that would follow.
Yeah, a few things about this. One, a funny thing, it's the only match I ever remember Jimmy Snuka wearing boots.
Yeah, no, you're right.
That's a really good point. I didn't even notice that, but you're right.
Yeah.
It's the only match I ever, and I don't know why. I by the way, I've seen this match 50 times. I didn't notice it until I watched it yesterday. Yeah. Another cool thing in this match, Snuka's in the ring, and Gorilla Monsoon refers to him as the Phenom, which I thought was really.
Oh, wow! I didn't pick that one up.
Yeah, he goes, Jimmy Snuka, the Phenom of WWE, and I was like, wow, how about that? So I thought that was really interesting. It's the first pay-per-view appearance for Paul Bearer, who became the manager of The Undertaker about a month and a half before this. I watched this match this time from a different perspective because I watched the Broken Skull session. I rewatched it for this with Stone Cold and Undertaker. And he talked about how when this character started, and he's talking about from 90 to beginning of 92, that when he was Mean Mark and Mark Calloway, he was a very athletic wrestler. And he could do a lot of things you wouldn't expect a guy his size to do. And, of course, we know that from watching him in the ring. But he makes a point to say, in my early matches as The Undertaker, I had to tell myself during the match to slow down because of the character. It should be slow, methodical, lethargic. And you can even watch in this match.
You can see it, yes, where he has to, remind himself a few times.
He gets Snuka in the corner, and he starts to go, boom, 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 like quick shots. And you see him take a step back and literally take a breath and literally telling himself to slow down. And he gets right back into that creep walk, following him around the ring, which I thought was really interesting to go back and watch. And I'm going to do more of his matches watching that after hearing the interview with Stone Cold. The other couple of things, you get a foreshadowing of the stuff that he could do. A massive flying clothesline. And then you get this monster suplex where he brings Snuka in from the outside of the ring. And it's such a monster suplex because he holds him up. And then he walks backwards 3 steps holding Snuka before he throws him down. And it's just like one of those things where you're like, wow, just a foreshadowing of all the things that we were going to get to see from this guy over the next 29, 30 years. But I watched it from a different perspective and got to see some things that I'd never seen before because I'd never really watched it from that kind of a standpoint.
Here's what jumped out at me. They came back from the interview segment with Marla Maples. Snuka's already in the ring. The crowd's appreciative. Snuka's a legend. Gong.
Yep.
Half the audience pops. The other half, and you can see it in a couple reactions, is scared
terrified
to death. There is nobody that has gotten the reaction of fear quite like that ever since. And that's one of the things that Taker did so well and that WWE did so well, because the early edict with him is pretty similar to what you see with a lot of monsters, where the edict is this guy never leaves his feet. Not only did he look imposing, he worked like it. And you watch this match, Snuka is bumping like a madman for Taker, doing everything he possibly can. Snuka doesn't leave his feet, or Taker doesn't leave his feet, and he hits the tombstone, and the crowd is awestruck at what they've just seen. It's a simple formula, but you need a guy with some element of presence to be able to pull it off. And safe to assume Taker has it, because it's 30 years later and we're still talking about him. The match itself, it's not anything to write home about. Snuka was well past his prime at this point, but doing what he could to put over the younger generation on his way out the door. And this was the start of something big, of course, the streak that lasted more than 2 decades. And you watch it back, and it's easy to see why this guy turned into such a big star. And I might have to go back just to watch the entrance, because you hear the gong, and yeah, there's a cheer. Paul Bearer comes out, Taker comes out, and the camera focuses on all the little kids.
Yeah.
And it makes you wonder what their parents were thinking. Because I think the parents are wondering, okay, I know this is fake, but my goodness, my kid is going to have nightmares about this guy.
Yeah.
They even, hearing a lot of the stuff at the beginning, they had to kind of curtail some of the stuff they were doing with The Undertaker right off the bat, because the body bag stuff that they would do on Superstars, where he would beat someone and then literally put him in a body bag right afterwards, which was just scary as hell. The beginning here of one of the all-time greats in WWF and then into WWE.
Real quick to add to Andrew's point, and again, on the Broken Skull session between Taker and Austin, he talks about how in the first few years, especially when he was a heel, that when he would, number one, he would always play up the character. He would walk slow when he was out. You could not see him in anything other than black. Like, he lived the character for years. And he would get asked by not only 7-year-old kids, but 15, 16, 17-year-old, teenagers would ask him if he was actually dead. Like when they met him, like actually being asked if he was really a live person. And that's how good he was and how good the character was.
Probably, I mean, I can't recall a character that's better than this ever. No. And in particular, like when you think about what this character really is and what he was, he did this and he made it believable like nobody else I think ever would have been able to. And a lot of it has to do with the time and the era too. You try to do something like this nowadays, it gets some laughs and it's not quite taken as seriously. Like you just said, people were scared shitless of this guy. They were.
Yeah, I mean, piggybacking off of Darin's point here and something you mentioned, I can name a couple of guys who, as far as gimmick goes, got close. But the caveat is those gimmicks were extensions of their personalities. You look at Steve Austin, you look at The Rock, they got those gimmicks over to an equal extent. It was a different situation with Taker because Taker had this character that he had to convey, as opposed to this being the writing team throwing up their hands and going, oh, let's just let Steve be Steve or let Dwayne be The Rock. This was something completely different, and it's a different element of character work that Taker had to do.
Yeah, Royal Rumble 94, I remember vividly in my parents' den at their house. I'm watching it with my dad. And that's the Royal Rumble where he fights Yokozuna in a casket match, and he gets, trying to fight off literally a dozen people. And he ends up in the casket, and then the crazy stuff happens because Taker's going on a bit of a hiatus. And he resurrects himself from the casket where he goes up on the screen. And I remember my father just sitting there with his mouth open at what was going on the TV, where you have the video of him in the casket talking. And then he starts to levitate above the screen. And my father looks at me and says, and this is 1994, my father was 53 years old. He looks at me and he goes, Darin, I have chills.
It was just well done. They did a great job with, for all the crap we give them about some of the goofy stuff and the later into the early 90s, some of the weird characters that Vince was always trying to put on someone. And I think, you hear Pat Patterson in one of the old documentaries talk about how, hey, maybe they didn't look like a wrestler, so you put a character on them, and that's what they look like. And this was the best of all. And then we lead in from, the first WrestleMania match for The Undertaker to just an all-time awesome, fun, memorable WrestleMania match. And in my opinion, by far the best match that the Ultimate Warrior ever even sniffed. He had a good one or two with Rick Rude, but I just feel like this one was way, way better. This was the first ever career versus career match, a retirement match for Macho Man versus Macho King, Randy Savage at the time, versus the Ultimate Warrior. They had a really big backstory and build for a while where Sherry was trying to get Ultimate Warrior to give the Macho King a shot at the title, and the Warrior wouldn't do it. Remember, they even have that one when Sherry kind of gets down on her knees and says, "What do you want? What can I do for you, Warrior?" And this was a big build. They interfered in the Royal Rumble match against Sergeant Slaughter. They end up costing the Warrior the title. I remember when Savage hit that shot on this head with the scepter. Still, when I see it, it's like, man, he nails the Warrior, and Slaughter beats Warrior. So they had a huge build setting this match up. I mean, this was a fun feud at the time, and this match, as we go through it, was just awesome. This was, not one of the matches This was more than the match in that it was about the storyline with Elizabeth coming back in, but the match does not take a backseat to this whatsoever. It was excellent. I love right off the bat. You see Miss Elizabeth in the crowd. Macho comes out with Sherry. He's being carried down the aisle on the throne, and then Ultimate Warrior doesn't run to the ring. Yep. And right off the way, you get the Bobby the Brain.
He's running
1,000 miles an hour like that insane fool usually does.
You could just tell this was going to be a little bit different of a match. And I think the Warrior's energy in this match was the best that he's ever had, because the one issue or problem sometimes with the Warrior is that he was so pumped up, and that was part of his character. That was fine. He was so pumped up that he would just get a little sloppy, in the ring. He had the perfect amount of like controlled energy in this match. He didn't seem like he was going too full bore at any point, but he wasn't like lazing around the ring. I just love this match on the rewatch. This match gives me everything that I want in my wrestling matches. It's more than like really good ring work. You get some bells and the whistles there with Sherry keep coming in. You get a ref bump here. You get a couple really big crazy spots where you didn't expect someone to kick out of a finisher. This was like one of the first times where you're seeing finishers get kicked out of in a match on both sides. Just that, the 5 elbow drops, Warrior looking up to the sky, asking the gods, after Savage kicks out, is this my time? And just back and forth. This match ends up going 20 minutes, and at the end, Ultimate Warrior wins by putting his foot on Savage's chest, which he had talked to Savage about before. Ref counts the pinfall. I just love this match.
I agree, and this conversation is going to take a while because there's a lot of things.
Oh yeah,
for sure. We're going to be here a little bit
that we need to hit on because there's a lot of different cool things that we can talk about. Look, obviously throughout the match, you're getting Sherry, going to be interfering with everything. One thing that disappoints me, not about the match, but in the afterwards, because you never really got like the sit downs with Jim Hellwig, aka the Ultimate Warrior, where he would sit down and talk about his wrestling career and matches because he was such a weird guy, and
you feel like they were coming right as he had just they were about to come. You know what I mean? As he just come back into the WWE.
I would love to have known if he walked out to that ring on purpose to try not to make sure that he didn't blow himself up. I would love to know if that was his idea or if that was part of the story where this match is different and I'm taking things differently and more seriously. I would love to know the thought process that went into that. The beginning parts of the match, it's perfect. Every time Savage hits him with a move, Sherry distracts him. Savage hits him with a move. It stuns the Warrior for 2 seconds. Boom, big power move right back at you. Shakes it off. The distraction on the small package. Warrior gets up irate. Hebner gets hit with one of the best referee sells of all time. Falls down like a stiff board tree in the woods. Like bounces off the ropes, great sell. You get to the 5 elbow drops. Now, you want to talk about protected finishers. I can only, and you guys, if you could think of another one up to this point, jump in. I can only think of Hogan at WrestleMania 5 as the only guy at a pay-per-view that ever kicked out of the elbow.
Yep.
Even Steamboat,
right, yeah.
Yeah, Steamboat never got the elbow. Well, he got it, but the referee was down. There was no count.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't. It's probably one of the 3 or 4 most protected finishers of all time. And I know some people take exception to the fact that they allowed him to hit 5 elbows and the Warrior kicks out. But then you return the favor, like you said, hits him with the press slam, hits him with the splash. Savage kicks out. And then you have, in my opinion, the best 3 to 4 minutes of Ultimate Warrior's storytelling career, where he's just on his knee looking up with like the hand up to whatever the hell he talks to in the sky, asking like, am I supposed to continue? And the referee's trying to talk to him, and he's looking at his hands and talking to his hands, and he's in like a different place. It's so damn good for the story and the match. Now, the one thing I don't like about this match, and I love the finish where the Warrior puts the foot on the chest and you get I love how the match ended. But I didn't love the fact that he hits him with the 3 flying tackles and he falls out of the ring each time and throw. I would have liked there to have been something else in between those tackles and the pin because it felt a little bit unrealistic to me that he kicked out of your 2 big moves, but now 3 flying tackles.
And that's it.
That's my only gripe if I have to pick anything with the match. But the image of him with the foot on the chest and the arms in the air, I thought was phenomenal. We could talk about the Elizabeth stuff after we let Andrew dissect the match a bit.
Okay, I've got a couple of anecdotes, and this is actually going to be a little bit different from Darin's point of view. First of all, I was lucky enough to meet Sherry Martel when I was 10 or 11 years old. She did an independent show in New Jersey in Wildwood. My dad and I went down there for a couple of days, and my dad was no Sherry Martel fan. He was an old school 1980s professional wrestling fan, and he was stunned. I had no idea who she was, but she was very, very nice. God rest her soul. She was incredibly nice to a young Andrew, and I've never forgotten that. Having said that, going back to this match, Darin, you hit on it a little bit. We had a Twitter conversation a couple of days ago with a guy whose stuff I've actually seen a little bit more the past couple of days. His name is Ryan Slocum. He does a lot of broadcast work in Michigan. He does some YouTube stuff on professional wrestling, and he had done a series on the worst WrestleMania matches of all time. That's actually pretty good if you've got the time to take. He did not like this match for the reason that you mentioned, the 5 elbow drops and Warrior getting to kick out and Savage kicking out of Warrior stuff and Warrior doing his thing. Here's my counter. The Ultimate Warrior never did anything that made sense in his entire career. This guy was a cartoon character strung up on human growth hormone and whatever drugs Jason Service and Ori Navarro allegedly put into their horses. Nothing about this guy made any semblance of sense, and that is why people loved him, because he was this wild man that was completely different from anything that anyone else was doing. So I get that. It wouldn't have had the same effect if, say, Ricky Steamboat did it. But Warrior doing it, where you almost got the sense that he was human. To me, that was brilliant. And I agree with Darin, the fact that the 3 flying tackles weren't ideal. Do 2 of the tackles, do the press slam and the splash. I think it works a little bit better. But I'll agree with Gino. Probably the best match of Ultimate Warrior's career, unless you're counting the match at SummerSlam. I believe it was the next year or the year after that. My 90, timeline's a little bit fuzzy.
I think it was 90 with Rude. Maybe was it 90?
No,
in the cage?
With Savage a couple of years later.
Yeah, that's a good one too.
Yeah.
That match was
yeah, that's good.
That was a non-finish, and the rumor there was Warrior was about to turn heel. There are, I guess, action figures out there of Warrior in really cool all-black attire, and I guess they were toying with the idea of turning him heel, but instead they did a non-finish at SummerSlam. That was the same SummerSlam with Bret Hart and Davey Boy doing their classic match, so it gets forgotten a little bit. But no shock here with Randy Savage pulling out an all-time great match from a guy who isn't traditionally remembered as a terrific worker. And then you get the stuff after the match with Sherry Martel beating up her meal ticket and Elizabeth not being able to take it anymore, running in from the audience, doing the tearful embrace with Macho Man holding the ropes for her. Somebody needed to stop chopping the onions in the arena that night, because there were grown men crying.
Bawling.
It's amazing when they pan the crowd. I mean, they really focus on the women. There's a young girl who looks like maybe she's 18, 19. I think she's probably a meme or a GIF on Twitter that they probably use sometimes of her crying. But then they go to 2 shots of older women that are in their 30s and 40s. That are crying. And I mean, back then, you didn't know that. I don't think you knew that Macho and Elizabeth were actually married and going through problems. Like, that was not like tears of, oh my God, like, this is a real couple that has a lot of issues. This is like tears of watching 2 characters reunite on the TV.
Ross and Rachel, on your TV show. Yeah.
And the one cool thing that I really like, they recreate the WrestleMania 4 moment with her on his shoulder. Mm-hmm. When he won the belt at WrestleMania 4 and walked around the ring with her on his shoulder. And like you said, Andrew, holding up the ropes to her and heading out. And of course, again, it's the last time we're ever going to see him in the ring. And a month later, he's been reinstated or whatever.
Yeah, next year he's fighting for the title
against Ric Flair. Stuff and the stipulations attached. If Vince knew what was coming, he would have gotten a completely different ending, and I don't think it would have worked.
No.
Because you'd have gotten Warrior leaving. Savage almost certainly wouldn't have reunited with Elizabeth. We wouldn't have gotten that moment. We wouldn't have gotten the wedding a couple of months later. It would have robbed us of a lot of really good stuff. We certainly wouldn't have gotten the big pop for Warrior's return the next year with WrestleMania 8, because that match with Savage gave him a lot of momentum that maybe got lost when Slaughter beat him for the title after Warrior had the long reign, where he didn't really move the needle as much as a lot of people thought he should have. It's one of those fascinating what-if scenarios, and you wonder if somebody went back in time and said, okay, Vince, here's what's going to happen in 6 months. Do you still want to do this?
Yeah.
It's a fascinating what-if, and what we got is just, it's so tremendous, and it's one of those things where wrestling doesn't have to be overly complicated in order to provoke emotion out of people, because you get a sense of Elizabeth being the one that got away for Randy Savage in character. She comes back and everybody in the crowd can relate to something like that. And you don't have to be overly complicated in order to tell a wonderful story. And that's the wonderful story that we got.
And on the Warrior, by the way, it's pretty wild because he leaves after SummerSlam. I had the old story of, he held McMahon up for a sum of 6 figures, otherwise he wasn't going out. And apparently when he chased Adnan and Mustafa back through the rope, through the curtains, the story is McMahon was there and fired him on the spot. And you don't see Warrior again till WrestleMania 8. Now he didn't get popped for the drug test until 92.
Yeah.
So he got popped for the HGH with Bulldog in 92. But when he comes back at WrestleMania 8, I mean, he looked so different.
Everybody thought he was a different guy. They saying it was Kerry Von Erich.
Yeah,
that was the rumor.
His hair was like missing 6 or 7 inches, and he looked like he weighed 30 pounds less. And I'm sitting there, and again, when you're 8 years old, 9 years old, you're not realizing this. But looking back on it now, if you watch, this in SummerSlam 91 and then look at WrestleMania 8, you would think that he got popped for the HG8
then
in 91.
It was weird. You're right. His body was weird when he showed back.
He looked so much thinner. So I never really understood that, and I'm sure there's some story to it. And I don't know what it is, but it's just one of those things that I noticed.
Bobby's going nuts all match. This is one of the matches that he was the most into that wasn't like a Flair match that he called. He makes a comment at the end too, when right before Savage kicks out of the gorilla press, when Ultimate Warrior hits it, he says, "Don't count Savage out yet," like right after he hits the finisher, which is cool. I love that Bobby was always kind of the guy who could make those comments, and a lot of the announcers wouldn't make. I'm sure he knew the finish and he knew what was going to happen. He knew it wasn't ending there, but that was just part of what Bobby did so great. And then at the end, after the match too, Bobby says Bobby's said something, she loves him, he's screaming she loves him, and Gorilla says she loves him from the beginning, and people are bawling in the crowd, and Bobby even for a moment he kind of he gets into he forgets that he's the brain, and he says this is better than the love story, if you like that kind of mush, which was just so great. Even he was so into this for a minute, and then after the match, he's saying, "Oh yeah, that's fluffy fluff." But there was a moment where you could see that he got wrapped up in all of it too, which was just great.
And with him, I think there's probably some real life in that.
Sure,
because he knows, and I think Savage and Elizabeth, I think, were divorced about a year after this, or a year and a half after this. But he knows, the saga of Randy Poffo and Elizabeth, and he knows, how Randy is and that they love each other, but he's pretty much a psycho when it comes to her. I mean, and I think that in that moment, there was probably some real life in Heenan that he had to shut down and get back in character pretty quick.
Yeah, and that's the type of thing that, with all due respect to some of the WWE announcers, that's missing. And you look at every announcer, anytime a big move gets hit, anytime a finisher goes, it's over. And that's how it's not.
Right.
And it's a case where it's going to take a pretty dramatic reversal in philosophy in order to build something like that back up. Because you get things like Heenan saying that. You get things like Heenan saying, but whose side is he on when Hogan comes out?
Oh, yeah.
And for a little while, Corey Graves had it. But it seems like he's gotten beaten down a little bit by WWE philosophy. And I understand we're going way off the reservation.
No.
This is a WrestleMania 7 thing. But this is one of the things that made Gorilla Monsoon and Bobby Heenan so great, was they played off each other so well. They knew how to build up the product and build up both guys in the ring. And again, it doesn't have to be overly complicated. It just has to be something that's executed well. And that's something that they did as well as just about anybody, save for maybe Jerry Lawler and Jim Ross.
Yeah.
It's a short list.
This was good. This was a blast. And I'm glad that in this Mania, we got to watch this match. And I think because it was so good, this was definitely a point where the show, it felt like, kind of turned a little bit. I mean, leading up to this, almost everything in the was fun, was good. Even the down parts weren't too bad. There was a squash, an Undertaker squash, which was, a cool moment. The blindfold match, which was but it was, more about the moment. And then things kind of started to drag, I think, a little bit after this, because it's so, like, everybody was so emotionally invested in this match. It was a great match, in ring. And then what happens afterwards, and you're like, people are crying, people are up and down, and you get a little exhausted. The next match was like a cooler match. It was, Demolition versus Demolition with Fuji versus Tenryu and Kito, and before that we got some Regis talking to Paul Bearer and the Undertaker, and then Trebek was talking to Demolition, and they didn't say very much, and then Tenryu and Kodo and Keitao didn't say a whole lot either, and then Alex Trebek was talking to Jake the Snake, who mentioned that Damien's favorite category is reptiles of the world. These were just the bad interviews, and then Bobby came back with the quip that he set up all the interviews for everyone, so he had them all set up with interviews with people that weren't going to really give him a whole lot. I don't really have a ton to say about this match. I'm looking back, it's just still so surprising that Demolition loses this match.
Yeah,
why? Darin, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, because you don't realize looking back that this was kind of like the end of Demolition. They started to get freaked out when they brought LOD in. That was the end of Demolition. And you looking back, you figure you have them lose because they're losing to mainly. I mean, Kato's fine, but Tenryu was kind of a big deal in Japan.
Sure, yeah.
And you think looking back, well, okay, they're putting over Tenryu, and Tenryu's going to have a run now, in WWE. Well, that never happens. This is like his only big match, if you want to call it that, in WWE. He shows up in 2 Royal Rumbles, I think maybe 93, 94, something like that. But that's it. And so my question is, what is the point of the match?
Yeah, I didn't.
And why did Demolition lose? If it just made no sense to me looking back.
Well, here's the thing that jumps out at me, and there's a couple of things here. It baffles me as to why this was booked for any number of reasons. First of all, we've got to make sure that we're completists here. This isn't Axe and Smash Demolition.
No.
This is Smash and Crush.
Yeah, you're right.
was
Good
on
point.
his way out. This was not the original Demolition. And when you're watching this on the network, it's not the genuine article because the Demolition theme music that Rick Derringer put together is dubbed over. And that was the best part of Demolition, because if you listen to the theme music, it's powerful stuff. It's dun da 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 da. Business is about to pick up when you hear the music. The music's not there. It seems like they're just random dudes, and at this point they were. There was never any real explanation that I could find for why Tenryu and Keitao were there.
No.
I mean, Tenryu was, I don't want to say a legend in Japan, but he was an upper mid-card main event guy for a while. He was no Antonio Inoki or anything like that, but he was a guy who had a lot of appeal over in Japan. So I understand why they brought him in for something. In the same vein, it's similar to why WCW did a lot of stuff with Jushin Liger, even though Liger wasn't necessarily a full card guy. But this baffled me. Nobody in this match sold anything. And you can see the audience filing out to take a bathroom break or get food or whatever. This was that match.
It was a bad match. Not only did it not make sense, it wasn't good. And this, this was one that I didn't feel like we would probably spend a whole lot of time talking about because it wasn't very great. And I think they put it in the good spot because it was just whatever was going to come after the Savage Warrior wasn't going to get a massive reaction. So maybe this, like you mentioned, this was like bathroom match time for them before we get to the IC title.
Real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
How much does it suck if you're Demolition here where you're being phased out and the reason you're being phased out is that they brought in the original version of what you. How much does that have to suck? Like, they make you as a counter to the Road Warriors. Like, all right, they got the Road Warriors. We're going to make our own guys, even though they look like they're into S&M and it's weird. Like that, this is going to be you, and you're going to be our Road Warriors. And then they bring in the actual Road Warriors, and you're done.
You're just gone.
Terrible.
And the next time we would see would be Smash would be the Repo Man?
The Repo Man, Barry Darso.
Following this, and then Crush became like Kona Crush, and then Crush in the Nation of Domination. He was kind of around for a while. But we get to Mean Gene talking to the Big Boss Man, who was challenging Mr. Perfect for the IC title. They cut a promo in the back, and Lord Alfred Hayes is going to join on commentary because Bobby is there with Mr. Perfect. I don't think anything too crazy about their promos. They were fine, just pretty typical. And then we get
very upset that his mama's feelings were hurt.
yes, that was it. We get Mr. Perfect with Bobby the Brain versus Big Boss Man for the IC title. I will say again, like some of the top tier baby faces here, the Rockers, Jake the Snake, Big Boss Man, get huge pops from the crowd. Just still a massive pop. Lots of heat for Perfect bumping all over the place like you would imagine in a Perfect match. And I think what was going on here was they liked both of these guys. They liked Big Boss Man, who was a good mid-card babyface at the time and like a Hogan buddy where they used him in a lot of spots. And they liked Perfect with his, heel shtick and his IC title run. And I don't think they were ready to give Boss Man a title. And I just don't think they wanted Perfect to lose clean here. So it ends up being a DQ win. And a lot of it is, I think, to get Andre a payday and to get Andre on the card. We've seen Andre in all 6 of the WrestleMania so far leading up to this. He had been a huge main, drawing point of WrestleMania for Vince forever. And I believe this is the last time we see him in the WWF. He makes, I think, 1 appearance in WCW. And then it's not much longer after this before Andre's gone, unfortunately. But Andre comes out. He can't even get in the ring at this point. So in order to deal with, I think Haku and Barbarian come out, and he's got to, they have to come to the outside of the ring in order for him to kind of punch them out and give them away. It's sad to see Andre moving so slow, but there were a lot of moving bells and whistles in here. It was okay. It was fine. It wasn't like an incredible match, but the crowd was into it, and there was a lot of heat in this match.
Yeah, Andre actually makes one more appearance at SummerSlam that year.
Okay, that's when it is. Yeah.
Yeah, with the Bushwhackers against.
That's when it is.
Yeah, and he's got those he's on crutches because his knees are so bad. Mm-hmm. I remember him hitting like Earthquake and Typhoon with the crutch. But I mean, look, Perfect can make anything look good. Oh, good. He does 2 or 3 of those midair 360 off the turnbuckles that are just like insane. You just didn't see that back then from many guys. We talked about the referee stuff. Weird thing in this match. They let the Boss Man belt Perfect with the strap. Like, he just yells at him. He points the finger. Like, he takes the belt off, and he's just whipping him with his belt strap, and that's okay. And then Perfect wraps it around his fist and hits the Boss Man twice with the belt buckle, and that's okay. Like, this is one of those things where it's like, all right, well, we're going to let that slide. All right, fine. But a couple of things I did notice in this match. Some of the hits, the chops by Perfect was so good. And I love Boss Man's short right hand. How that doesn't look like it's like really connecting on a guy.
He could go, man. He could go. He doesn't get talked about enough as like the big guys who can go. But the superplex off the cage with Hogan when it was like 88, I think, or 89, like around then. And this guy could go, man. He really could.
He could. And like you said, is it a great match? No, probably not, because it's a bit of a weird matchup. But Boss Man can work, and Perfect can work with a broomstick. So I thought it was a good match. Was it fantastic? No. To be honest with you, I forgot exactly where it was in the card. And to be honest, until I watched it, after the Savage Warrior match, I kind of forgot where every other match was.
I know. It's just you feel downer because that match lifts you up so much. It really does.
Yeah. But yeah, like you said, it's a good match, good work, good story. They do fine. And then you get to see Andre one of the last times, which was cool.
I liked this match. I thought it was a really fun match. I hated the finish, and here's why. You do a little bit of research, and you see that the Boss Man had for the last 6 months, and again, these storylines taking 6 months, not something you see.
Right.
The Boss Man had spent the last 6 months going through members of the Heenan family to get to Mr. Perfect. The logical conclusion in an era where WrestleMania is where all the baby faces go over, Boss Man wins and gets the title. Now, if you don't want Boss Man to be a long-term champion, that's fine. There are ways in which you can get the title off of him. I thought Boss Man deserved his WrestleMania moment here. And when I was watching this match, I thought, Boss Man's better than I remember him being in the ring.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect is bumping his butt off. Okay, there's the cheating, the hijinks, and the shenanigans. Oh, there's Andre. Seeing Andre walk out was one of the saddest things I have seen because he's hunched over. Yeah. He's billed 7 feet plus, and I go 6'5", and I think I would have been nose to nose with him.
Boss Man was nose to nose with him at one point after the match. I noticed it where him and Andre are eye to eye, and he should be 9 inches taller than Boss Man.
It's jarring, and you see him walk out, and the crowd pops because it's Andre. He still had this aura, but you knew he was not well, and you had to think, okay, this is probably the last time we're going to see him. They did see him at SummerSlam, saw him at WCW, but it was sad. I loved the way he clocked Perfect with the belt, just so nonchalantly, the way a giant would do something ridiculous and make it seem so easy. Just like, boop, and then Perfect does the ridiculous sell backwards. I thought that was great. I thought it was a fun match. I thought Boss Man should have gone over clean, and they should have found another way to get the title off of Boss Man so that Perfect could drop it to Brett. But Perfect was also going through some stuff with his back at the time.
Yeah, he had a lot of injuries, too.
Yeah, I get it. I understand why they did it that way, but you look at the storyline, the logical conclusion was Boss Man going over, and he wasn't a tremendous worker, but he's better than people remember. Good trivia question. He was Hogan's opponent on the very first episode of Monday Nitro. That was the fact that was how good he was. He could work with pretty much anybody. He could sell very well for a guy his size. I thought he deserved at least a little bit of a reign there, and seeing him again, not necessarily get that, it hit me the wrong way. Good match, lousy finish.
It's a good point, Andrew, because a week later, wasn't a week after this that old WrestleFest thing?
Yep.
They could have put the belt on Boss Man for a week, and they could have had Perfect go over at the WrestleFest if you wanted to. So
yeah, exactly.
That's a good point.
This led into Bobby the Brain coming back, and then we got Donald Trump in the crowd. There he is, Mean Gene interviewing Donald Trump, and then he interviewed. Just so funny. And Trump, Chuck Norris, Henry Winkler, and Lou Ferrigno in the crowd. So what a group. They would make a fun Survivor Series team, that group of 5.
Henry Winkler's sweater steals the show there. He has this Mr. Rogers sweater, and he just looks like this old square dude in the crowd. You're wondering where his kids are, and it turns out he's there, and he gives this cheesy thing about the Ultimate Warrior getting his ultimate win and doing the thumbs up. It was just so ridiculously, unintentionally funny. And Trump, by the way, gave a whole bunch of one-word answers. You got the feeling that something was going on there, and he just was not thrilled to be there in the slightest, which is strange because he and Vince were pals to the point where Vince's wife was on his cabinet for a little while.
Something maybe happening with Marla backstage. Who knows? Because they would be married, I think, soon after this. We get to Earthquake with Jimmy Hart versus Greg Valentine. This is basically just a squash. Valentine got a good amount of offense in here, but they end up Jimmy Hart distraction. Earthquake takes advantage, and he gets the win. So there wasn't much more of Earthquake as a singles competitor, I think, after this. It wasn't too long before he was in the Natural Disasters.
Yeah, because they fought Bushwhackers at SummerSlam, which was 5 months later. So, yeah, I mean, Tugboat was gone. They brought him back as Typhoon, and it worked. I mean, they were a fun tag team. I was never I mean, I was never just a big Earthquake guy. I just,
No.
It just didn't do anything for me. All right, big dude. He would walk around and like flex his biceps, and it was just fat.
Yeah.
The guy was 26 years old. He looked like he was 45. I mean,
right.
I mean, look, I don't want to be mean, but just like one of the ugliest people you've ever seen.
The warthog, isn't that what Piper called him? The warthog. Yeah.
And it's not. I don't want to demean the guy or take anything away from him, but like when he feuded with Hogan, I was like, who wants to watch this? Like, come on. Like Hogan needs somebody to help him in a match, and you're putting him in with Earthquake. I mean, it's the natural disaster stuff was fine. I mean, the two big behemoths, but yeah, this match for me, it was just there, and to be honest with you, couldn't be over soon enough.
I'm gonna go the complete opposite direction in a lot of ways here, because John Tenta, the guy that played Earthquake, was a fascinating case study. Before he was in the WWF as Earthquake, he was a sumo wrestler in Japan. And he was in the process of going up the ranks to becoming one of Japan's better sumo wrestlers when he left. He was actually never beaten in a sumo match. If you look on Wikipedia, source of all knowledge, he was 21-0 in matches in which he competed. He no-showed one tournament to get to 21-0-7. Tenta was a legitimate athlete. He played college football, goes to the WWF, becomes Earthquake, and I actually liked this match. I'm going to play devil's advocate here. Here you have Earthquake, a guy that should not be able to move at all. You have Greg the Hammer Valentine, who Gorilla Monsoon delights in saying takes about 20 minutes to get
every
warmed
time.
up.
But he's never been in a 20-minute match, right? That we see like this era, which is hilarious,
It's a great running joke. And Valentine is a babyface here. He had never played babyface in his life for any reason. They turned him babyface here. And I actually thought this was a pretty entertaining 4-minute match because Earthquake didn't go off his feet, but he did the dazed and confused arms wobbling and going all over like a weeble wobble, but they don't fall down. I thought that was pretty entertaining. Earthquake goes down. Valentine tries to get him in the figure 4, except Earthquake's legs are
too big. Yeah, that was a good spot, though. That was a good spot. I agree.
Pops up. Valentine gets killed. Earthquake gets the win. Jimmy Hart looks awful in his outfit, but it's his 6th outfit of the evening, so who cares? I actually liked this match more than I remembered, and I thought this was by no means the worst match on the card. There were a couple of other squashes, 2 of which we haven't even gotten to yet.
Yeah, that's
that
true.
Were so much worse than this match. I thought Earthquake and Valentine actually worked pretty hard.
Yeah, I could see it. The only thing I remember is, after he delivers the finisher, he's literally standing there panting.
He's just blown up. Yeah,
blown up to the point where his mouth is open and he's like panting for air, which is But I mean, he's a huge guy. I get it. But yeah, I mean, look, we can have differing views of wrestlers. He just wasn't the style of wrestler that I was ever going to be into.
Oh, completely agree. He was by no means a technician who would wrestle 5-star classics. For what he was, I thought he was totally fine.
Mm-hmm.
We get to Sean Mooney talking to the Legion of Doom. I loved this one from Hawk. Power and glory, power and glory. When we get done with you, you'll be sour and gory. And the real backstory to this was that Power and Glory cost the Legion of Doom a chance to face the Hart Foundation for the tag team titles. We'll actually see the Legion of Doom face the Nasty Boys in a street fight at SummerSlam later this year. This match did not go a minute. It was a quick squash. Get basically get the LOD on the card, get him a big pop, get him a quick win, build them up as the power team that they were. We got the huge LOD pop at the beginning. And, I mean, it wasn't much more than let them come out, let the crowd see them, and let everybody know that they're going to be kind of on the way to the tag title soon.
Yeah, not Paul Roma's best tag team. Him and Jim Powers were actually a fun tag team when they were the Young Stallions.
Yeah, they weren't bad.
Yeah, in the late 80s. But, yeah, I mean, this is obviously just, in a real, like, grand stage WrestleMania introduction to Legion of Doom, and they're going to be the tag team. And I mean, LOD, such a wild like story behind, you know, the Road Warriors and where they came from, and, you know, Georgia Championship, AWA to Japan and WCW. Then they come to WWE, and you think they're going to like have this long run. It lasts for like 2 years. Hawk flips out, goes AWOL after SummerSlam 92. Nobody knows where he is. Like, he doesn't get on the charter plane to come home. He ends up in Japan. Animal leaves WWE to go wrestle with Hawk again in Japan. Then they bring him back again. They disappear again. They show up in WCW. They bring him back again. I did like the LOD 2000 when they showed up with Sonny, specifically because of the outfit.
They had some good stuff with the New Age Outlaws. Yeah.
When Sonny walked out with that outfit, I remember. I think I was like 17 years old. I was with my friends downstairs. There was like 5 or 6 of us, and everything just stopped. It was like, holy, you know what? Look at Sonny, like, oh my God, you know. So that was cool. But yeah, I mean, they were one of the greatest tag teams that wrestling will ever know. They get their squash, obviously paving the road for, you know, their subsequent coronation at SummerSlam. Nothing really to say about the match. It didn't last long enough to talk about, but LOD, obviously one of my all-time favorites.
Darin, you stole my thunder completely.
Because
I was going to talk about LOD 2000 coming out with Sonny for that tag team battle royal. And everybody was already in the ring. Yep. And it was all these nondescript tag teams, and you knew they were building to something. You just didn't know what. And then the second the music hits, you're reminded, oh, that's why they call it a Road Warrior pop. And that was the reaction that I also got here, because that's the thing that jumped out at me the most about this match. It was the Warriors come out, oh, what a rush, whatever, and the crowd goes bonkers. If a tag team had a better look for professional wrestling, I don't know who it was other than Animal and Hawk. Big guys, face paint, mohawks, looked like they would kill you and dump you off the side of the road. They
probably would.
Knowing what we know. Hawk was on a lot of weird stuff. I wouldn't have put it past them, but it was the LOD were a case of being star-crossed in a lot of ways. And one of my favorite matches with them is actually one of the few times they locked up with the Steiner brothers in WCW. The Steiners debuted on Nitro. They rode out on the motorcycles, and they had a really good 15 to 20-minute tag match where the Road Warriors won by cheating with the Spike. And that's a legitimate 4-star match. It's on one of the Best of Nitro DVD sets if you can find it there. It's a really cool thing, and it was a hell of a deal. But that's the story with the Road Warriors from 1990 onward. When they showed up, it was a really big deal, but they didn't show up a whole heck of a lot.
No, they didn't. But you talk about the Road Warrior pop. SummerSlam 91, when they get, I don't remember if it was Knobs or Sags. I think it was Knobs. When they get him up for the finisher, I was there. The place is unglued. Everybody is standing waiting for this coronation. And when he hits him with that, and they hit, like, it's one of the first times I remember the hard count from the crowd. When you hear like the 2, 3, like, and the place goes nuts. And then watching it back, afterward, whenever I had the opportunity, when it came out on tape, and you hear like, the commentators where, Bobby Heenan goes, as the crowd's just building with like, I don't know, roar or whatever you want to call it. We got new champions, before he hits the 3 count. Just a huge, massive, one of the biggest pops you'll ever hear on a great pay-per-view. Look, it didn't matter where you put them, you were getting that pop. They were that good.
The next feud, we get right into the build for the DiBiase-Virgil feud. I mean, we talk about long-term builds. This build was happening for years with always seeing DiBiase, treating Virgil like garbage and making him rub in his feet and all. We get some really great videos of DiBiase just like laying into Virgil. I loved this feud when I was young. It really wasn't a feud about their matches. They have this match. They have the match at SummerSlam for the $1 million title. You could tell at this point, Virgil couldn't really do a whole lot in the ring, and they did a pretty good job in this match to hide that. It was just a lot of punch, kicks, using Piper with the crutches as much as possible. Piper was like a big part of this match. DiBiase was, get involved with Piper outside the ring a couple different times. They don't even really let Virgil get completely over yet. He wins via count out. And then post-match, there's a pretty intense beatdown that is more intense than I remember when they were going at Piper's leg. He had been recovering from a motorcycle accident, so he was on crutches. And this was all about the story because Piper helped Virgil stand up for himself and helped Virgil, leave the $1 million man. And then at the end of the match, Virgil's kind of telling Piper to stand up and get him up. So this is another one that wasn't as much about the match as it was kind of the overall storyline continuing forward, because you could tell this storyline was still in the middle. It was going on for a while, all the way till SummerSlam. I think it was like the end of 91, early 92 when Virgil was kind of on his own for a little while, and he kind of became like a jobber to the stars and the new wrestlers that were coming in.
Yeah, I remember this pretty much the way you did. When I watched it, it was the same thing. Virgil the offense that he gets in is like punches and kicks, and all of the wrestling comes from DiBiase. You get like a power slam, you get gut wrench suplex, you get a regular suplex. To Virgil's credit, he does bump well. He does take good bumps and everything like that. But all of his offense is more like boxer, kickboxer than it is wrestler, because that's kind of what he was. And even the match at SummerSlam, most of the offense is DiBiase, and that's the way it has to be because he's the wrestler of the two. And that's how I remembered the match and watching it back. That's how that's how it played out. DiBiase carries the match, does well. The story's good. Piper out there with the crutch. DiBiase keeps knocking him down, punching him, kicking him, whatever, and the whole, Virgil build up at the end, telling Piper to stand up. Yeah, I mean, it was good for the story. The match was fine. I enjoyed their SummerSlam match more than this one. Because,
I think so too. Yeah.
Yeah. When you had Piper on commentary and, he keeps giving Virgil the suplexes and he walks over and you hear him say, "I got another one for you, Piper." And Piper yells out, "It ain't for me. Come on, Virgil." Like that. I thought that match was better, but I mean, the story was cool. The matches were fine.
The thing that jumped out at me with this is I almost completely forgot Piper was a thing in this match. I knew he had gotten hurt. I knew that there was a motorcycle accident, but they used that as part of the finish where he actually uses his crutch to pull down the top rope. DiBiase goes flying over, winds up getting counted out. I thought that was a pretty cool spot. But what jumped out at me about this match was WrestleMania now is when all the storylines end. Right. We're not used to seeing matches like this that further a storyline.
You're right. It's a good point.
What's supposed to be WWE's season finale, so to speak. It's jarring to see that given what the event has become. And it's understandable why they did that. They needed to get Virgil a little bit more seasoning. He wasn't ready yet. And there was, was he ever going to be ready? I don't know. But this wasn't the time or place for that to end. They did a nice job working Piper in. He did a good job keeping the crowd involved. People wanted to root for Virgil because DiBiase was such a scumbag. It was fine for what it was.
And yeah, Sensational Sherry comes out at the end to save DiBiase, and then they're together for a while. And I mean, she literally just left the side of the Macho Man like an hour earlier. So gets right into it with DiBiase. It was fine. Just kind of further the storyline as we got into a real quick squash up next. Sean Mooney interviewed Sergeant Slaughter and General Adnan before, and I just now looking back, I like Slaughter and I like everything that he did and everything he was for. But at this time, this was almost like go away heat for me. Like it wasn't like the heel like the Undertaker or like an Andre or even like a Bundy, the heel that Hogan had faced. Like he didn't do it. Like I whenever he was on, I almost wanted to turn the TV off a lot of the time. His voice was bad. He was spitting all over like crazy. And in this promo, it was actually kind of funny. He actually talks about how he's going to try to get himself DQ'd or counted out. And you see it happen throughout the match. That was kind of a story of the match. And that, was it really terrible officiating, or were the referees just kind of letting everything go because they wanted Hogan to win? It was a little promo here as we get to the Mountie with Jimmy Hart versus Tito Santana. The Mountie, who was Jacques Rougeau, so he was in as the Rougeau brothers, and he would later be in the Quebecers, I believe. He this match lasted 1 minute and 20 seconds. We had some early offense from Tito, and then before the match even starts, Heenan says, "I'm surprised he's here. It's only 150 miles from the border." So you get the Mexico quip in right away, and he uses the cattle prod. They cheat. The Mountie uses the cattle prod to beat Tito Santana, and then when he gets him in the belly with it at the end, Heenan says it was just because Tito ate the Mexican food. It wasn't from the cattle prod. So this match wasn't even 1 minute and 30 seconds, and we got two, Tito's from Mexico quips.
Yeah, it's Tito lost at WrestleMania 100 years in a row.
He did.
Yeah, but what we talked about, and I wanted to bring it up, and I forgot earlier, but you give me a good chance here. When we started the show, we talked about they really pushed the envelope with some of the things that they do and say in this WrestleMania. The Tito Mexican stuff was one of those things. The other obvious one is the Sergeant Slaughter Iraq sympathizer.
Oh yeah.
Because we are right in the middle of the Gulf War. And I remember that there were stories that he would get death threats.
Oh yeah, he was getting real heat.
Yeah.
People hated this guy, not like a cool heel thing.
Yeah. And then the other thing that I didn't realize until, again, watching it this time. This WrestleMania was 3 weeks after the Rodney King tragedy in Los Angeles. And multiple times between Perfect and Bobby Heenan, they make reference to, we have LAPD out here, real police officers who know how to handle their business, if you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And Perfect says to Boss Man in this promo, "You're not going to get me down in the middle of the ring to slash me 56 times. So they are blatantly exploiting the Rodney King, issue, which led to riots and, we know the story, but they really pushed the envelope
with that, with the Gulf War stuff. I even mentioned a couple of the different comments there. Heenan there, the Nasty Boys made a comment too. That was definitely R-rated comment. So you're right, Darin. You can pick out 5 or 6 things that they were really pushing things a little bit here. And this wasn't much more than just a squash. And I will say, it did lead, the Mountie was a short-lived character in WWE, but I loved that Big Boss Man jail cell match. That was a whole lot of fun.
You want the finger? Here's the finger.
It was so cool when because in between the matches and stuff, they would put that up on the video board, and seeing it in person, it was so funny to watch. Like him getting into the jail cell, and they throw him in with that guy who, obviously looks at him suggestively and says what he says, and the Mountie flips out. The place was dying every time they put that video up.
Going back to this match, Jacques Rougeau and Tito Santana deserve better.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Out there,
yeah.
This was essentially a get these two guys a payday match.
And and at this point, they were probably weird on the timing and stuff. At this point of the show, it's one of those things where maybe this was supposed to get 4 minutes. Instead, you get one, literally one.
Yeah, and I mean, looking back, and obviously it might have been a timing thing. Who knows? But you couldn't have made Earthquake Valentine and Mountie Santana a tag team match. Instead of one 4-minute match and one 1-minute match, you do a 6-minute tag match where everybody gets a couple of moments. Earthquake splashes somebody and we all go home. That would have been so much more preferable than what we got. Because
I agree.
Jacques Rougeau, when he wanted to be, could really work and fire up a crowd. Tito Santana was one of the most dependable workers on the WWE roster for, as Darin mentioned, about 100 years. Both of them deserve better than what they got here, which was the last match before the main event, which featured Alex Trebek as the guest ring announcer.
Then we get to the heavyweight title match. It is, before that we get the Mean Gene Hulk Hogan interview. Hulk's got the USA colors, and it's very patriotic, and they're building up the lead up to what happened over the last few weeks with Sergeant Slaughter and Adnan beating down Hogan, and we get the intros for some of the guest stars here, and It's time for the World Heavyweight title match. Sergeant Slaughter with General Adnan versus Hulk Hogan. People hated Slaughter, and that Hulk Hogan pop is just deafening, and it is a roar, and it is like a sustained roar. You know, there's a slow start to this match. The guys work hard. It's just like a their match to me. I'm not completely against it, and by no means do I think it's a good match at all. There's just some bad spots in the match that I like watching back. I completely forgot. You know, slow start. It's what you would expect from a Hogan. If you knew that it was Hogan versus Slaughter, it's probably close to like one of the better versions that you could expect from these two. I think they both needed like a better dance partner to lead the way at this point. And you know, there's one point where Slaughter puts in the Boston Crab, and he's like literally on top of the ropes. Yeah. And even Regis Philbin is like, why isn't he grabbing the ropes? And Hogan's just, he could like elbow the ropes. I mean, he's literally right next to him. It was weird. There's a couple different spots where, you know, they're hitting with a chair right in front of the referee. Then there was another weird spot where General Adnan is like distracting the referee while Sergeant Slaughter's trying to pin Hogan, which is that's like ass backwards. It didn't really make a whole lot of sense. This match ended up going 20 plus minutes. You get the Hogan at the end, the battle back. He's bleeding like crazy in this match at the very end. So that's kind of a cool picture, like Hogan in the camel clutch with the face blood bleeding down. And, you know, it was fine. You get the really loud Hogan chants again at the end. He's busted up, gushing blood. I did take notice that I thought this was one of Hogan's better leg drops he's ever given. It looked like he was super bouncy on that leg drop. Like he got some really good air. Nonetheless, it's fine. I think when you compare it, what hurts it is that when you compare this match to WrestleMania 3 versus Andre, WrestleMania 5 versus Macho, and WrestleMania 6 versus Warrior, it's not as good as any of them.
No, it's not. I mean, for me, I was not a Hogan guy, and obviously everybody hates Slaughter. So for me, this was like, ugh, you know. But yeah, I mean, there's even a couple more spots. There's a spot where Slaughter gets slingshot into the ring post. And unfortunately, the camera is right on the base of the ring post, looking up. Slaughter's head misses this ring post.
It's not even close.
It's not even close. And you get the up-close shot of him just missing this and, like, trying to sell this thing going backwards. It's terrible. Then when you get the chair shot to Hogan, the blade job. Oh, my God. Like, you wonder why he's bleeding. As he's rolling over, he does it so fast. He freaking gouged his forehead out.
He's like, just gushing, yeah.
Oh, my God. I mean, it's just so obvious, too. As he's going down, he just reaches across his forehead and slices. Like, it was like New Jack against Mass Transit. Like, with the... I mean, you know, and he's gushing blood because he dug himself a hell of a wound. I mean, and the match, there's just not much wrestling. It's a lot of kicks and stomps and punches. I mean, you know, I guess that's what you're going to get out of these two guys. But I didn't enjoy the match at all. I didn't enjoy watching it back for the reasons we all talked about. It's unfortunate because this, I'll be honest with you, out of the first 8 WrestleManias, I won't get into WrestleMania 9, but out of the first WrestleMania 8, this is by far my least favorite main event, and it's not even close.
Yeah, I agree on that.
Okay, first of all, because New Jack scares the living daylights out of me, I'm not even going to address your comment there. New Jack can go talk to you. He's not going to go talk to me. All right? I watched Dark Side of the Ring. I'm not touching that. Anyway, I actually like this match a little bit more than Darin did. And
well, I don't like it at all. So,
well, by no means is it a classic, but I think some of it is pleasant surprise. Because Sergeant Slaughter, in the years leading up to this, was in the AWA in its dying days. And if you ever want an exercise in masochism, watch AWA episodes from 88, 89, 90. Oh, my goodness. You get Sergeant Slaughter there. His promos are fine, But the second the bell rings, he is just completely checked out. He's overweight. He's out of shape. He's coasting on the Cobra clutch, and it's not a good sight to see. You could sort of tell that there was a desperation move to get the belt back onto Hogan because Warrior just wasn't moving ticket sales as much as Vince thought he could have or should have. So
he booked him terribly as the champion.
It's true. Yeah.
Warrior had no heels. Rick Rude, much as we love him, wasn't necessarily a main event heel at the time. Much as we like DiBiase, the bloom was sort of off that rose at that point. That's another conversation, but it's a case where they needed to get the belt on somebody to get from Warrior back to Hogan. They found Slaughter. Vince had the idea of doing the Iraqi sympathizer gimmick. It worked fine for Warrior. He got to go with Savage and have that great match. But everything about the Slaughter stuff just seemed so forced. And I think people were looking at this main event, judging by what we're seeing and reading, sort of indifferently. And you can tell that based on the rumors of they didn't move it from the Coliseum because of security. They moved it because tickets weren't selling.
Yeah.
So you look at that match and you're expecting a complete and total clunker. I didn't think it was a clunker. I thought the guys actually worked reasonably hard with what they were given. Slaughter was obviously very limited. His prime was several years past. Hogan is Hogan.
It just was too long for me, right, Andrew? Like if this match was, instead of 20, if this was like 12, and they were able to do like a lot of this stuff without like some of the really slow parts of the match, that's the part where I think they could have cleaned this up a little bit.
I agree with you on that. And 12 minutes is the sweet spot for me too. I liked the storyline with them working Hogan's back. I thought that was actually okay. Slaughter came off the top rope, which you don't expect a guy like Slaughter to do. He did the stomp to the back. They did the Boston Crab, which was a horrible location for sure, although that did bring in General Adnan from the outside, ramming Hogan's head into the canvas, which I thought was a pretty cool little touch. But the other thing that I remember, Hogan makes the comeback, big boot, big leg, good night, crowd goes crazy. Bobby Heenan goes, he did it for the United States of America.
He did. Yeah.
You're supposed to hate Hulk Hogan with every fiber of your being. What the heck are you doing?
That was one of the few. You're right. Yeah.
And I understand the idea of pitching patriotism in a war. I understand that. But Heenan was going after Hogan really hard the entire match. Regis Philbin actually brought up, well, if Hogan's the champion, that means your guys aren't getting title shots, whatever. He was trying to get Heenan worked up. And then Heenan out of nowhere goes, he did it for the United States of America. That's one of the few lines Bobby Heenan ever uttered that was just a complete and total dud. Yeah. The match itself, it was probably too long, but there have been many worse Mania main events. Darin, sure. I got to take exception. Hogan Bundy was a total clunker.
I didn't mind that one as much.
I've met King Kong Bundy before he passed. He was a wonderful man. The picture on my Venmo is of him choking an 11 or 12-year-old Andrew at an independent show. That match was lousy. I thought this was better. I thought Slaughter tried after a couple of years of some horrible matches. I thought this was a decent atonement for him. Hogan, when he wanted to, could go. Yes, the blade job wasn't great, but there wasn't a lot of matches with blood at that time. And that's else that
I think that's what they were going for, was the, because things were so intense and the whole, the feud with them. And it did feel a little shoehorned. But you make a good point. There just weren't really, at this point, you had, Macho kind of had his main event run, and he was kind of like high mid card, and obviously he's going to be gone for a little while. Andre's gone now. DiBiase had his little couple year run. We just don't really have a ton of, like, they never really gave Perfect like a main event run as a heel. There just wasn't anyone there. They kind of had to create them until, Ric Flair comes around a year later. And this was the best that they could do, which was at least Slaughter had some cachet, and a name, which would have been a little bit better than maybe throwing someone from the undercard that you just, building him up and giving them the title. So this was a for sure polarizing WrestleMania. And, from the, the Gulf War stuff to, when you just look back, lots of big moments in, Undertaker debuting, the Warrior and Savage stuff, the stuff with Elizabeth afterwards. We'll remember the blindfold match a little bit. So, all in all, it's not the best WrestleMania. I don't think it's the worst WrestleMania. I think that the second half of the show started to drag a little bit, but the first half, like up until and including the Savage Warrior stuff, there was some good stuff, and there were a couple hidden gems in there.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'm sorry. Really quick before Darin goes, you had mentioned the stuff about heels, and take Ric Flair out of the equation, and you've got to go until 96, 97. I'm not a big Yoko guy.
Yeah, no,
Yoko never did it with me.
And that's fine. I can understand that. Yeah.
Yeah, but you'll look at WrestleMania 11. You have Bam Bam Bigelow main eventing against Lawrence Taylor. Main event of WrestleMania 12, Bret and Shawn in the Iron Man match. There just weren't a lot of top flight heels with the WWF in the early to mid 90s that you really felt comfortable putting out there in that capacity. You had Taker, who was a heel for some of his run, but he was sort of in the mid card, squashing people on their way down, building himself up, because the next year at WrestleMania 8, he got Jake Roberts right as Roberts was going out the door. So it's a weird situation, and it's something that, looking back, you really wonder just how WWE survived to the point where they were able to catch fire again in the late 90s, because if the money's in the chase, as the theory goes, there weren't a lot of heels there after Ric Flair left. And even when Flair was there, yeah, he had the Rumble win and he had the match against Savage at WrestleMania. It never seemed truly organic with him. And that's an issue that we saw with WrestleMania 7. And it's an issue that would plague the company for a while until they found a formula that worked in the mid to late 90s, starting with DX and going from there.
Yeah, that's entirely true. One other thing I forgot I wanted to mention at the end of the Hogan match, everyone's about patriotism, right? One of the cool spots was when, I thought probably the coolest spot of the match was when Slaughter spits on Hogan, and then he throws the Iraqi flag over him. There's actually a couple of guys sitting behind Donald Trump that are dying, like laughing. After the match is over, Hogan's posing. Somebody throws him an American flag. He proceeds to crumble the flag up and clean the blood off his face with the American flag.
Just
and
insane.
Back into the crowd. So
bizarre.
Like, you're talking about like patriotism, USA. The guy was given the guy probably thought he would hold, because he had the other flag on the pole, that he would hold the flag up or whatever. He cleans the blood off his face with the flag and crumbles it up and throws it back into the crowd. When I watched that back, I was like, oh my God.
Sorry, brother. Can't see, brother. Can't see, brother.
You imagine if in social media and the news today, if that happened today in the middle of a wrestling ring at WrestleMania.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my God. People would go nuts. But yeah, look, to Andrew's point, great point about the heels. I totally agree. They just weren't a lot of them out there. Yoko was the big heel that they chose. We all know what Yoko was. They did the Bret Owen thing. Owen made for a good heel. The matches, by the way, were phenomenal.
Agreed.
But it just couldn't. You couldn't.
He wasn't like your number one company heel, though. You know what I mean? And
it hurt. Stretch that out for.
It hurt because a lot of the guys that were heels, and even like Shawn Michaels moving forward, they were undersized. Yeah, so it's hard to have an undersized, dominant heel.
But think about Shawn at WrestleMania, when he went to face Bret, he became a face.
A face at that point, yeah.
Yeah. But all the years up to that, he was a heel. So even as they started to even their heel characters were no longer really heels. Look at Austin. All of these guys, because they were so good, organically became baby faces. And it's a really good point. How they made it through all those years, and maybe it's a part of the reason why they had their struggles, in that they have these terrible characters and they had no big time heels.
Yeah, that's a great point. This has been a lot of fun again. We just crossed the 2-hour mark on recapping this show, and
we're going to talk back and do it again, or?
Yeah, I think one of these shows will eventually get a recap that's longer than the actual pay-per-view in itself. When we're
the longer we go, the more unlikely that is. I mean, I don't think I could go 6 hours on last year's WrestleMania. I'm sorry, I can't do it. I don't have that.
Before we go, since we're going into WrestleMania weekend and we have SmackDown tomorrow night, let me just ask your opinion real quick. What is the unique way that they get Roman out of the match tomorrow night? What is this quote unquote unique creative idea that they're doing that's going to have Roman pulled creatively from the match?
Hornswoggle.
I think what they do is because I'm assuming this is who I think it has to do with the person who is going to be in the match. I think they can do something where they bring in. I'm assuming it's Braun Strowman because
I'm still not finished with you. Are they really going to do that?
And I'm assuming something like that where hey. This was supposed to be I think they could say this was supposed to be a Braun match. Braun does something to write Roman off TV for a little while, and then Roman can come back and beat Braun, and you can have Braun kind of take it from Goldberg. He can be a little bit of a placeholder for a month, 2 months, however long that be. Roman can get his win against him at SummerSlam. They can do that. You get Braun a little bit of a run with the title finally. I think that's probably the best way to do it.
If they do that, I'll be disappointed because they've been using this word unique, and there would be absolutely nothing unique about it.
No, you're right. You're right. I just that seems like a WWE type of way to fill it in,
Okay, I got 3 things that they could potentially do, and they all involve the letter H. You have Hornswoggle. You have Hogan reprising WrestleMania 9 with Roman Reigns in the role of Bret Hart. And you have Triple H doing something ridiculous.
Yeah, it could be. He has the built-in Goldberg feud, too, from years back.
None of those seem remotely far-fetched to me, and I would just laugh so hard if somehow Hogan was involved because this was supposed to be his weekend going into the Hall of Fame again with the NWO. I really think at some point we're going to see him do something because he lives right in Florida. He's got to have something going on here. And I got to tell you, if Hogan somehow winds up involved with whatever angle they've got going on, I really should start placing bets on this stuff.
You'll get the praise. You'll get the credit. That would be hilarious. They have the old Goldberg Hogan feud from Nitro, and Darin, I think you mentioned it last week when we were talking that they never had their real big pay-per-view that everybody got mad that they had that match on Nitro. They could even have that joking, in the build. But I hope they at least do something to build it up. I hope they don't even pretend as of Friday Night SmackDown that we're going to see a Roman Reigns versus Goldberg match at WrestleMania. I want them to because we've known about this now for a few days. They waited all week long. So I'm assuming and hoping that they have something that they already did for SmackDown, and they're not just going to wait till after SmackDown and say, or day of and say, oh, something happened, Roman Reigns isn't going to do it. Give us at least a day to know that it's not going to be Roman and what this match might be.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. You don't want it to be like one of those stupid things like, oh, what happened? Where's Roman Reigns? His music hit. He's not that would be terrible if they did something like that. But yeah, I would. My wife is already at her wit's end with these. I swear to God, if Hogan walks through the curtain, she's gonna lose her mind.
Yeah. Tape it if that happens. I want to see that if that happens. And I will also be taping myself if for some reason Goldberg's standing in the ring waiting for a mystery opponent and you hear dun 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 dun, and Hogan doing the thing with the ear with nobody in attendance.
You're gonna come out with a walker or like a couple of crutches, or maybe Flair will wheel him out.
Oh, that would work.
that would
absolutely work. Yeah,
that would be funny. Well, guys, this was a blast. We've had a lot of fun. I think the people enjoy listening to these because it kind of lets them escape for an hour or two and remember, years back when they watched wrestling and kind of in what was the golden age. I think from 85 to maybe like the early 90s really of wrestling, and then we got it again in the late 90s with the Attitude Era. Thank you so much, fellas, and I look forward to hopefully bringing you guys back again next week. We can maybe talk about a little bit of what happened in WrestleMania, and then maybe we'll have Mania 10, one of those middle ones, 10, 11, 12, 13, one of those we'll put up on and see what the people vote for.
Whatever you want to do, buddy. If the people want to hear it, I'm here for whatever. It's a lot of fun. And look, I mean, we got to pass the time somehow, and there's certainly worse ways to do it than talking wrestling with friends.
Completely agree. And as Darin enjoys saying, where the hell else am I going to be? I mean, this is the shelter-in-place order got extended through the month of April, so I am at your disposal at any reasonable hour for any reasonable length of time, just as long as the WrestleMania doesn't last for 3 weeks, which I got to tell you, at some point in the next 10 years, we're going to wind up with like a 14-night WrestleMania with 120 matches.
WrestleMania month. It's the April WrestleMania. Fellas, Darin Zoccali and Andrew Champagne. Give us your plugs one more time. Darin, where can we find you on social media? And then Andrew, you after.
Sure. Twitter at the track 7. Give out some horse plays. We had a couple of winners over the weekend. And by the way, gave out a $30 winner today at Gulfstream.
Gulfstream, I saw that. Nicely done.
Not bad. Nice score there too for $1,000. So yeah, every once in a while we throw up some videos there if we like something that we see, and obviously this weekend will be a lot about what's going on in WWE, and whenever sports come back, we talk about that too. So give me a follow. Hopefully we'll give you some good information and some fun insights as well.
Man, I'm surprised we went 2 hours without you taking a victory lap. That's a good score, man.
Yeah, that was great.
I've become more humble in my old age.
Did the Iron Sheik come over, break your back, and make you humble?
It wasn't the Iron Sheik. It was my wife.
It was Colonel Mustafa is really who it was. Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. And you better hope and pray your wife's not listening to this. Anyway,
tomorrow, it's not going to go well. I promise you that.
Once again, take video. Anyway, for me, Twitter is at Andrew Champagne. With all the stuff that's been going on with horse racing, I've actually started taking a look at races from Australia. My friend JD Fox and I just started up a YouTube series where we go once a week. We're actually going to be breaking down some of the races from Royal Randwick, I believe, coming up on Friday night. It's a great late pick 4 sequence. You can actually play those for as little as 20 cents. So if you're a degenerate gambler, you're up late on a Friday night, take a look at that stuff. It's actually pretty good racing, really good card, and good payoffs because the fields are so big. You can play them for as little as 20 cents. I'll have a $21 ticket I'll be giving out. A lot of fun. And in fact, we're actually going to be recording that in about 9 minutes. So my voice has gotten a nice little warm up ahead of that video. At any rate, though, thank you for having me. This has been great. And I really can't wait to see what the fans vote for next.
Awesome stuff, guys. Well, you have a good weekend. I'm sure we'll be texting back and forth during WrestleMania with some of our thoughts on the matches. Make sure to give these guys a follow on social media. Darin Zoccali and Andrew Champagne. We will take a quick break here on That's What G Said, and we will be back with much more. Don't go anywhere. Just wanted to remind you about one of the sponsors of That's What G Said podcast, Sarah Candle Company. Visit sarahcandles.com, CERA candles.com. Use the promo code GINO for 10% off of your entire purchase. These are all natural soy wax candles. They burn longer. They are better for you than the candles out there that have that traditional paraffin wax. I know the people from this company personally. I've grown up with them my whole life. They love candles, and the goal was to have an affordable candle that everyone can enjoy. Use that promo code GINO. My favorite is Fresh Roses. The Fresh Roses scent is awesome. If you're a horse racing fan, they got Del Mar in there. You ever want to know what Del Mar smells like, but you couldn't make it out there? Order your candle right now from Sarah Candle Company. The website, CERAcandles.com. SarahCandles.com. Promo code GINO for 10% off your purchase. Let's get into some Friday racing. Let's start with Gulfstream Park for Friday, April the 3rd. We'll go to race number 1, and I'm going to begin with the 8 in here. Let's not get too excited. This filly has some speed. Low percentage win connections, but she has 3 or 4 races that are good enough to beat this group, and she's not going to get bet because of these low percentage win connections. In her last start, she broke out. She settled too deep. She was near the back. She was 6-7 off. She ran into some traffic. Then she moved in between. She angled around. She took a big shot at the 1-2 favorite and the eventual winner. It was a really, really solid effort. So I'm going to have the 8 horse in here. We'll make a win wager on the 8. Let's not get too excited there in race number 1 at Gulfstream Park on Friday. In race number 2, I like the 8 here again. One more time, Traveling Gambler, who's going to drop a notch, who's going to exit a live race, who's going to take the slight cutback in here. That's the 8. Traveling Gambler, going to be the top selection there if you're playing some of the early exotics in race number 2 at Gulfstream Park. No real strong opinion in the third. We move on to race number 4. And I'm going to go with the 12 in here, Plan of Attack. Last time out, he was pushed 5 wide into the turn. He ended up last. He was 10 off. He moved in between horses. He ran into traffic 3 different times. He ran really, really well. He's already had to deal with a wide draw before. He was in post 11 last time out, so he's had to work out a trip from an outside draw. I think Plan of Attack makes a lot of sense in here. Voices in the Darkness would be another horse I use underneath, but let's give Plan of Attack top billing in here, the number 12 in race number 4. In race number 5, a couple horses to look at in here, but we will put the 7 Power Walker on top. I think High Noon Rider is worth a look. Make sure to include in some of your exotics. Power Walker has some speed, can sit, can close, can pass horses. His overall turf form is really, really good. Give a look to Power Walker in here. We're going to make him our top selection. We'll put a win wager on the number 7, Power Walker. That's in race number 5. In race number 6, a couple horses to include. Orifice with the blinkers on is going to be tough. Candy Machine is going to be really tough. Who was behind the nice All Fight Dempsey, who's going to be entered on Saturday. He got up the challenge, but he couldn't get to the leader and the eventual winner, All Fight Dempsey, but he won the battle for second. Fried Rice King had a slow start. He was bumped around. He settled off. He was pretty good. He just missed third in his debut. But I like Ellis Island in here. You know, he really got going late. He was traveling his best late. Now he has some extra distance to work with, and he just seemed like a distance horse when I was watching him, like a horse who will enjoy this stretch out, that race under his belt now. Let's make the number 5, Ellis Island, our top selection in race number 6. We'll make a win wager on this one, and we'll kind of key in some of the late exotics. And then let's move to race number 9. And I'm going to go with the 5 in here, Laska. Laska is going to put 2 starts together, and Laska is going to drop in class a notch after coming out of some pretty live and pretty productive races. I love when you see a horse like this who raced in October, then sent to the bench for a few months. Raced in December, sent to the bench for a few months. Raced in February, sent to the bench for a few months. Just the extra 2 weeks could give this filly a little more sharpness, not having to be off again for a couple more full months. So I think she could be just a little sharper here, maybe a little closer for that late kick. The number 5, Laska, will make our top selection in race number 9 there at Gulfstream Park, and that's Gulfstream Park on Friday as we get set to head to Oaklawn Park. Just a couple plays for Oaklawn on Friday. Unfortunately, we were going to have a couple plays for Golden Gate also, but they canceled on Thursday and Friday, so all the handicapping for the Thursday-Friday cards just out the window there at Golden Gate. Oaklawn. Our first play at Oaklawn is going to be in race number 1, and that's going to be the number 6 in here, Post Close. Post Close, who he made his first start in 2.5 months on February the 26th, and I think you can just put a line right through it. It was on the grass, and it was against Tougher. He's going to go second off. He's going to drop. He's going to get back to the dirt, and he has legitimate excuses for some of his recent poor performances. His Louisiana Downs race last year on July the 23rd, that race wins this. He's very capable of beating this group. I think Post Close at a nice price of 12-1 is worth including in all of your early exotics, and let's make a win wager on that one in race number 1 to kick things off. If we can get anything over like 6-1, I think he feels like he's just too high. Let's go with Post Close to kick things off. In race number 3, what's wrong with the 8? Swingin' Sam. Okay, these are maiden 30s now. Swingin' Sam has been facing maiden specials his entire career. He was at Remington, and then he had a layoff from December of 2018 to February of 2020. So no matter what, whenever he returns from that layoff, he's going to need at least a race or 2 to get back into his best fitness level. So, he raced against maiden special weights. His first start back, it's a race that's in the slop, and it's already come back a productive race. His February 28th race, going 6 furlongs, it wasn't awful, and it's a race that's already come back a productive race. Now he's going to go third start off the very long layoff. He's going to drop in class. He's going to stretch out. He will be a lot closer early. He's going to be able to show a little more of that speed going long in here. I like Swinging Sam, who has the opportunity to sit close in a race that I don't know how much speed it is, how much speed it has in here. You'd imagine that Fudge Tough is going to be forwardly placed, but once you get past that one, you kind of start looking up and down, and there is not a ton of speed. So if Swinging Sam breaks well and is able to clear or sit right behind, I think he has a huge, huge shot. Let's put the number 8, Swinging Sam, on top, and we'll make a win wager on that one. And then let's go to race number 8. So just 3 plays on the Friday card at Oaklawn Park for me. In race number 8, I'm going to go to the 3, CZ Rocket. We'll make a win wager on this one. If we can get anything around 7-2, he's going to be a first-time gelding for Al Stahl, and he comes out of some really productive races. If you'll notice, he's faced some really sharp horses and horses who have come out of their last few races to continue to run really, really well. He was bumped at the start a little bit. He settled inside, but he was in tight. He was, backed up right into, he was shuffled back a few lengths. He was just buried inside with absolutely nowhere to go. And then he tried to duck down to the inside, and he got up into contention. He was within a length and a half, 2 lengths at the farthest, and then he flattened out a little bit late because I think he was in some trouble, and his best run had dulled. So give him a big shot in here, and maybe a key around some of your late exotics, or maybe if you're just looking for a horse to win, to put a win wager on in race number 8. The number 3, CZ Rocket. So at Oaklawn Park, 3 horses for you on Friday. First race, the number 6, Post Close, and third race, the number 8, Swinging Sam, and the 8th race, the number 3, CZ Rocket. Those are your Friday races from Gulfstream and from Oaklawn. Best of luck on Friday. One of the sponsors of That's What G Said podcast is Cindy Carava, full-service realtor, and I am here over in Glendora at Coldwell Banker with Cindy Carava. Cindy, how was 2019 for you? Tell us a little bit about what kind of stuff you were working on.
Hi, Gino. Thanks for having me. 2019 was just really great. I had a great year selling homes all the way from Altadena, Arcadia, Monrovia, out to Upland and Ontario just recently. The market has been really good. We're looking forward to 2020 with an increase in home prices about 5.8% this year, opposed to last year where it was a little softer. We saw more like homes averaging about 3.5% in increase in value. It's also looking great for buyers. The interest rates right now are going to be staying under 4%. So if you've been on the fence about thinking about buying a home, now is the time to do so, with interest rates still staying low.
And you offer more services than just the buying, selling, and leasing homes. Tell us about some of the other services that you offer and what a full-service realtor really is.
So you're right, Gino. Besides me being a full-service realtor of finding properties for my clients to buy or selling their homes or finding rentals for them, I also have a plethora of resources like handyman, contractors, electricians, plumbers. Like I said, if you're thinking about getting a home loan, I actually work with 2 great lenders that I can recommend to anybody.
And you're all over the internet, social media, websites. Let us know some of the places where we can find you. I know I've seen some reviews on Yelp and on Zillow. Everyone always has positive things to say. Everybody hears me raving about you all the time. But where can everyone else find out information about you or contact?
Thank you, Gino. Yeah, I am on Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn. And you can contact me on my website, which is www.cindycarava.com, or my email, which is cindyc.realtor@gmail.com, or feel free to call or text me on my cell phone, which is 626-394-6400.
Cindy is awesome. She's one of the kindest and most genuine people I've ever met. I promise you, you will enjoy every minute you interact with her. So thank you very much, Cindy. Appreciate all of your support from That's What G Said podcast.
Thank you, Gino. Have a great day, everyone.
Let's start Saturday's racing, April the 4th, with Oaklawn. Let's head on over to Oaklawn to start Saturday. And we will get to, in race number 1, 8s and aces. I thought would be probably pretty tough in here. A horse to include in some of the exotics. Not one that I'm absolutely in love with, though. In race number 2, let's go to the 6 bigs. He's going to go third, start off the layoff. He takes the blinkers off. This is where he fits. He has some speed. Blinks come off so he can relax a little bit. He was your beaten favorite last time out in a race that was in the mud. Now he's going to stretch out, and I think he's going to take them as far as he can go. third off the bench. He hadn't raced from October of 2018 to February of 2020, so he needed his last couple starts to get a little fitness. He dropped from the state-bred maiden special weights to the state-bred maiden 20s, and he showed a little bit more speed, but I think it's easy for us to excuse that effort because it was in the slop, right? We can definitely make it a legit excuse for it. So let's put the 6 bigs on top, and we'll make a win wager on bigs in race number 2. In race number 4 at Oaklawn Park, that's going to be our next play. And we will look to the number 2, Lucky Betty. Just toss the slop. The debut race was good. Hooks the slop in career start number 2. But what you get out of that is at least you get some fitness out of the race. So now you're able to use that as your second sprint before you stretch out to a route. I think she's going to sit a little closer in here. The number 2, Lucky Betty, in race number 4. Let's go to race number 5. And in race number 5, I like the 3, Prince Pierce in here. You're going to get back to the dirt. You're going to go third off. This was a horse who hadn't raced from August of 2019 to January of 2020. Came back for a new barn and was a winner at Fairgrounds in a race that was taken off the turf. On the grass last time out, a fine third. This is a really versatile horse. He has a little bit of speed, but he's shown the ability to come from off the pace in his last few. Probably shows a little more speed here going 6 furlongs. Let's go with the number 3, Prince Pierce, as our top selection in race number 5. And we move on to race number 6. You know, this is more of not a horse that I'll probably be playing to win, but maybe a horse that you can key if you're playing like a late pick 5 or if you're playing some late exotics. And that is the number 9, Exaltation, who was a good second last time out, and he just doesn't have to be so far back. I think he has the opportunity to sit much closer if need be. So the number 9, Exaltation, let's use as a kind of a key to anchor some late exotics there. And if he is close to that, like 3-1 or so, then sure, we'll bet him to win. Race number 7, the number 6, Dolce Ride, is going to go second start off the long layoff. She just needed her last start. She turns back to 6 furlongs today, and I think she'll be able to have a little bit of tactical speed, but she'll have a ton more late punch today, making the second start off a really long layoff. If you'll notice, a lot of these horses that we've used at Oaklawn, it looked like they really needed their race the last time we saw them. Like they got their prep race out of the way, and I feel like a lot of these are going to take a step forward and be much, much sharper today. That's the case with the number 6, Dolce Ride, in race number 7. In race number 8, this is a strong little allowance race, optional claimer here. You have Answer In, who was the favorite in the Southwest, and he loomed up, and he was good in that race, and he faded. He finished 3rd, but if you'll notice, like Silver Prospector got a great trip that day, and then Wells Bayou has come back out of that race and run really, really well. So Answer In, I think, is the one to beat in here. Finnick the Fierce is another one who I'd give a shot down on the inside. I just feel like he has some ability, and he wouldn't shock against this group. So Answer In and Finnick the Fierce would be the 2 that I would include in race number 8. In race number 9, in the late exotics, I would go 6, 8, 4, 9. I feel like Lexi on the Move, with her running style, she should benefit the most in this race. You have Kimari's pretty damn versatile from the inside, but you have Ringleader, Flat Out Speed, Edgeway, Booty Tama, who I'm expecting all to be flashing some speed. Frank's Rocket is not going to be too far out of it. Kiss the Girl isn't exactly slow, and then Wasabi Girl. So you have a ton of speed in here. I want the horses who might be able to sit just off and maybe, be able to just track from a few lengths behind, and that's the case with Lexi on the Move. I think she's going to be able to sit a little bit really nicely in here when a lot of these other horses kind of get a little they get a little flustered sometimes when they don't get the lead, if you're used to getting the lead, if you're kind of a one-dimensional speed type. So let's use the 6, Lexi on the Move. I respect Frank's Rocket. Kiss the Girl is one who I think could end up working out a really nice trip. I love her versatility. She has some tactical speed, but she's not as quick as the others in here, so that may end up being a blessing in disguise. She might end up working out a really, really nice trip in here, and that's Kiss the Girl. And then the 4, Edgeway, with that kind of speed, you just never know. I mean, she might be just a freak and be able to run them all off their feet, even though it does look like there's a lot of speed on paper. And then We'll close things out with the number 4 Aztec Empire. I'll have slightly on top, adding the blinkers, third off the long layoff, just not really needing to take much more of a step forward to get the better of this group. The 5, Wild Union, obviously a very logical one. The 8, I think Mo and Go, second off the bench, should improve a little bit. And then Tis the Journey, the first time gelding on the outside. So nothing too crazy or outside the box in race number 10. Just a recap of the Saturday Oaklawn plays for April the 4th. Second race, the number 6 Biggs. Fourth race, the number 2 Lucky Betty. Fifth race, the number 3 Prince Pierce. Sixth race, the number 9 Exaltation. Seventh race, the number 6 Dolce Ride. Eighth race, the number 5 Answer In Infinite the Fierce. Ninth race, the number 6 Lexi on the Move. And 10th, the number 4 Aztec Empire. Let's talk a little Gulfstream Park for Saturday. So we're talking April the 4th. I have some plays in the second half of the card. So nothing early in the Gulfstream races. My first play, or the first races that I'm kind of interested in, are in race 6 and on. Let's get to race number 6. So I'm going to go to the 8 here, Cozy Dreams. Cozy Dreams was a bit slow, but made a nice move into contention, chasing the pace setter and the eventual winner that day. She proved that this is where she fits. Aramio now jumps on for the new connections. She was your beaten favorite last time out. I think if she gets around 7-2, that's worthy of a win wager in this field. There are no monsters in here. The 6 Pass the Time's a little interesting. She broke well. She took back a couple lengths off on the inside. She got shuffled back to 7th of 8, and then she kept to the inside. She moved into 2nd late. It was a fine effort. I would use her in some exotics also, but I like the 8 in here. Cozy Dreams will make this one a top selection, and we'll use with the 6 in some spots. Race number 8, in the 7th race, a couple horses, nobody that I really love, but maybe include the 5 in some spots who gets back to the green, and the 7, I'm the captain now if you're playing some rolling exotics. In race number 8, I'm going to go to the number 7, Hot Toddy, who should have plenty of pace in here for her late rally. Most recently, she was 7th. She was tucked inside. She was 6-7 lengths off. She had an ultra course and angle around late, and now she's back in with Florida Breds. I think this is a good spot for her in here. Let's go with the 7, Hot Toddy on top. We'll use along with the 3 inside horses. The 1, 2, and the 3 all look like we can use them in some of the exotics in race number 8. In race number 9, we're going to use the 6 horse on top, Silverly Enough, who should be really tough on the cutback and has shown the ability to come from off the pace a little bit, but has enough speed to get himself into a good position. The 5 will likely be on the lead. I have him in the 3rd spot behind the 6 and the 8, Maserati Man, who has some kind of low figures, but you watch his races and he seems like he fits in this level. He's drawn pretty well to kind of sit just off the pace if he has to. I'm going to go 6-8-5 in race number 9 at Gulfstream Park with the 6, Silverly Enough on top. Let's go to race number 10, and this will be a mile on the turf course. I'll start with the 4, Dr. Shane, who completely missed the break and just had no shot off of that start last time out. And he moved well in between horses late. It really wasn't a bad effort after that brutal start. Now he's going to go 3rd start off the bench. Don't expect him to be so far out of it this time. He really doesn't have to be. He's got a lot more tactical speed than that. The 1, Colonist. I liked this horse a lot when he was in Southern California. He hasn't raced since November of 2018. He's going to go as a first-time gelding. He's coming into the Todd Pletcher barn. He's got a little bit of back class. He's faced some good horses, and he was in some tough spots. He's got some ability. I wouldn't be shocked to see him run well. I'm going to use him in some exotics. The 3, First Premio, should get a really nice trip from off the pace. He's going to be making his first start since October, but he should have every chance to come running in here in a race that seems to have a good amount of speed. The 7, Ice T, shouldn't be too far out of it. Probably one of those early speeds, but he loves to win. He can sit just off. The hope is that, for his chances, he can't get too caught up in that early pace battle or what projects to be that, at least on paper. A horse like the 11 is another one to include in some of your exotics. Halliday, who is going to be in a little tough with the draw, but has the versatility to either go, maybe can take back a little, can take back if he has to. So in the 10th race, we're the number 4, Dr. Shane, with the 1, 3, 7, and 11 as other horses to include underneath. In race number 11, I'm going to go to the 7, Master Day. Last time out, he's in the Fountain of Youth. You can put a line through that race. And look who he's faced in his 3 losses, at say Indian and New York Traffic. Let's go to that January race when he was behind Traffic, and he was bumped around and had some traffic early. He was wanting to go, but he was tucked in right behind the leader and the eventual winner, and he couldn't make up any ground in the stretch after the slow pace being set. And, that was going a mile and a 16th. He went a mile and a 16th again after that in the Fountain of Youth. I like this turn back to 7. What's wrong with Master Day? Let's make a win wager on him. If we get anything around 5-1 or so, I'm going to have the 7 on top of the 3. I'll fight Dempsey, who he could be any kind. He was really impressive in his debut, but he has speed in a race that seems to have a good amount of other speed, so he's going to really have to show that he can either sit off or he can deal with some other speed in here. The 4, Sonneman, he has continued to improve, and he should be fine coming off the pace. He just hasn't raced since October. That's kind of why I prefer some of the or others with a little more recency over him. And then the 1, Tomcat Black. I don't really love the rail, but I do like his running style. I like the fact that he's turning back from a couple races going a little bit longer, and he has the kind of style where he doesn't have to be way out of it. He could just be in a little bit of trouble getting shuffled back from the inside. So 7-4-3-1 in race number 11 with the number 7, Master Day, as the top selection. And not a whole lot to talk about in race number 12 as far as I'm concerned. I thought the 8 was going to be tough, Avenida Manana. And maybe if you want to go a little deeper, if you're looking for prices, I would have the 10, Amazing Audrey, the 11, Night Watch, and the 4, Sweet Story underneath. That is Gulfstream for Saturday, and hope you all have a good Saturday in your wagers.
So